team. And will you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Apologies for the delay in starting. We had a few items in closed session run a little bit longer than we anticipated, and as a board, we'd just as much rather conclude our closed session items so as to not have to reconvene in closed session at the end of open session, so I appreciate your patience. At this time, I'd like to ask Vice President Patel to report out of closed session.
Good evening. Closed session began at 4:15 p.m. The Board of Education took the following action in closed session. On a motion by O'Connor-Ratcliffe and a second by Beatty, and by a roll call vote, the board voted 4-0 to approve the compromise settlement of case number 372017-41638-CU-PA-CTL in the amount of $9,500 and authorize the superintendent to execute the necessary agreements. In the matter of pending existing litigation, case number OAH 201801301387, on a motion by O'Connor-Ratcliffe and second by Beatty, the board voted to ratify the settlement agreement. The vote of the boards was as follows: ayes 4, noes 0, absent 1. In the matter of pending existing litigation, case number 2017-120206, on a motion by O'Connor-Ratcliffe and second by Beatty, the board voted to ratify the settlement agreement. The vote of the board was as follows: ayes 4, noes 0, absent 1. In the matter of pending existing litigation, case number CCSA4, on a motion by O'Connor-Ratcliffe and second by Beatty, the board voted to ratify the settlement agreement. The vote of the board was as follows: ayes 4, noes 0, absent 1. In all other matters, there was nothing to report. Closed session adjourned at 6:10 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Patel. As you can infer from the report out of closed session, Trustee Sellers is not here this evening. All other members of the board are present. And at this time, Shana is absent as well, our student board representative. Thank you very much. And she is down as having given the welcome to the public.
I've got that.
You've got that, Dr. Patel. Welcome to the public.
Welcome to the monthly meeting of the Board of Education. If you would like to address the board on any agenda item, please complete a speaker slip. All requests to speak must be submitted to the clerk of the board before the agenda item comes up. If you're requesting an agenda item pulled for public discussion from Section 5.0, the consent calendar, a speaker slip must be submitted to the clerk now, as approval of the consent calendar is one of the first items up for approval. Item 4.2 is placed on our agenda to enable members of our community to bring items that are not placed anywhere else on the agenda to the board's attention. Speaking time is limited to 3 minutes per speaker with a maximum of 15 minutes per topic, unless waived by the board president. There will be a 30-second yellow warning light when time is running out. Speakers may only speak on one topic under item 4.2 and may not defer their speaking time to another individual. If there are concerns regarding specific individuals, it is preferred that the speaker refrain from naming them publicly to respect their privacy. The board will accept and review any written materials that would provide more specific information. The Brown Act does not permit board action or extended discussion of any item not on the agenda, but your concerns will be referred to staff. With that said, welcome and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Dr. Patel. At this time brings us to item 3.5, approval of the agenda sequence. Are there any changes to the agenda? If not, is there a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by
Second.
Trustee O'Connor-Ratcliffe, second by Trustee Beatty. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Next item is 3.6, the 2018 CSBA Delegate Assembly election. And Dr. Phelps.
The California School Board Association Delegate Assembly is the primary policy-making body of the association. Delegates adopt the association's legislative platform, take positions on other issues that may come before it, elect the officers and directors, and adopt bylaws. Voting may take place at our board meeting prior to March 15th deadline date for the ballots to be postmarked. The board as a whole may vote up to 10 the number of vacancies in Region 17. In your packet, you should have a list of those who are to be considered. The number of vacancies is 10, so the board may select 10 candidates, up to no more than 10 candidates.
Thank you very much. It's actually been brought to my attention that Trustee Sellers, who serves as PUSD CSBA delegate, has submitted his choices to the board for their consideration in light of his absence here this evening. So I have, or each one of us has here in front of us, Mr. Sellers' recommendations that we vote for Brian Clapper from National School District, Eleanor Juanita Evans from Oceanside Unified School District, Armando Farias from Chula Vista Elementary School District, Claudine Jones from Carlsbad Unified School District, Deborah H. Shade from Solana Beach School District, Marla Stritch from Encinitas Union Elementary School District, and Cipriano Vargas from Vista Union School District. There's 7. Are there any additional recommended names for the board to elect to the board?
I liked the statement of Elva Salinas, but I'm not familiar with Grossmont Union High School District's demographics and their size, and I'm interested in someone who has some similarities to our district if I'm going to add anybody. But that was the one that I liked her statement.
Is there anybody in the cabinet can actually speak to the approximate similar demographics with Grossmont?
Anyone know?
So they're a 912 district, and I just know they're a large 912 district, so they're not a K-12. I can't tell you the number of students that they serve.
I guess I'm okay if we just adopt the group that Mr. Sellers suggested. If I were to add one, that would be it, but I'm not wed to that in any way. I'm basing that solely on her statement.
We can go up to 10. We've got 7. It just so happens that I didn't get to even 7, as Mr. Sellers did. I had, I believe, 2 or 3, but they match up with what Mr. Sellers had already, so I'm also fine with Mr. Sellers. Dr. Patel?
I'm fine with that as well. We can go up to 10 if you have any inclination that Miss Elva Salinas might be a good addition. I'm okay with supporting that.
Ms. Beatty?
I'm fine with going with Mr. Sellers' recommendations.
I don't have a strong feeling. I'm fine to go with Mr. Sellers' recommendations as written, and I'll motion that we adopt his recommendations for those 7.
Motion to adopt the recommendations as submitted by Mr. Sellers by Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe.
Second.
Second by Dr. Patel. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries 4-0. Thank you. We're going to move to the student board representative reports, and I'm going to call first Nicole Labrador and Delaney Anderson from Del Norte. Or is it just one? Welcome. Go ahead.
Good evening, board members. It is an honor to report to you tonight on behalf of Del Norte as we continue to grow to be college-ready, future-focused, and globally aware. Here's what's been happening in the nest. College-ready. Our junior AVID class took a field trip to some of the Cal State and UC schools, including Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, UC Berkeley, and San Francisco State, to help them figure out which colleges they want to apply to next year. Our Nighthawks are challenging themselves academically and attending our AP information meetings to prepare them for their advanced classes next year. Future focused. We recognized one of the hardest working teachers, Ms. Mitchell, our ASB advisor, as our next teacher of the year for the 2018 to 2019 school year. One of our seniors, Abby Jin, placed first in the DECA State Conference. We also had students place 2nd and 3rd overall at the DECA SoCal District Competition. We hosted a heart screening with the Save a Life Foundation, promoting and ensuring the health of our campus. Currently, our students are filling out their CRFs for next year and taking their finals to end the trimester strong. Globally aware. We celebrated Black History Month during February by posting pictures and stories of some of the most historical and significant African American figures throughout our halls. We held a Global Awareness Week last week where we decorated seven different sections of our halls with items representing the 7 different continents. We are currently raising money for the $1 for Life organization in hopes to build a classroom for the kids in Zambia. Other things we've been doing in the nest. We held a fun and successful winter formal themed the Polar Express at the Hilton Del Mar. We had our annual staff and faculty basketball game to raise money for both our boys and girls basketball programs, and our freshman class held their annual dodgeball competition for the students. Our theater department put on an amazing musical production of Guys and Dolls. Our color guard team hosted the West Coast Winter Guard show and placed second. Our girls water polo team placed first in their Palomar League. Our cheer competition team was titled Division Champions, and our boys soccer team won both their Palomar League and their Division II CIF championships. They are currently in Fresno right now, where they will play Washington Union in their second round of state playoffs. We are so proud and lucky to have all of these talented students on our campus. As for upcoming events, our senior class will be hosting an informal themed Space Jam on March 31st. Our 2017 to 2018 ASB term sadly ends tomorrow, and we will be transitioning to a new set of leaders. I wanted to thank you all for allowing me to report to you on behalf of Del Norte. It has been an honor. And for one last time, it is great to be distinctively Del Norte. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Michael Sarmiento from Abaxis High School. Welcome.
Hello, and thank you for allowing me to speak to the board one last time. We have two programs at Abaxis High School, the Diploma Program and the Transition Program. I am Michael Sarmiento and a student in the Transition Program. The Transition Program is for young adults 18 to 22 who learn important life skills at Abaxis and in the community. The students in the program are all working at 30 different paid and volunteer job sites, learning skills so that we will be ready for jobs when we leave Abaxis. We are working at places like Lake Poway, Home Goods, Walgreens, Meadowbrook, Salvation Army, Kaminsky's, and Armstrong Nursery. The transition formal will be held this Saturday, March 10th at the Poway Community Center for 100 current and former students. The transition program was chosen as one of the programs that will receive donations from the Jacko Smash fundraiser. The diploma program is for students who choose a non-traditional style of learning. The leadership class hosted the third blood drive of the year today. They also created and delivered a recipe book to the residents of the Door of Hope in a joint venture with the transition cooking class. The leadership class has also worked with the transition program to help with the formal. The construction class have built a variety of projects that are used around the campus, such as new planters for the garden, and have completed numerous minor repairs on campus. Students from both the diploma and transition program participate in the garden project. We continue to donate food to friends and family, community connections, which then go to needy families in the community. The garden project has begun working on creating this and teaching students how to grow food in limited spaces using a vertical growing system, thanks to a generous donation by the Green Valley Civic Association. The students worked with construction classes to create and build an off-grid solar-powered system to aerate the pond 24/7 in case of a power outage. Thank you so much for your time, and for one last time, it's so good to be an Eagle. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Lastly, we have Mount Carmel High School with Alaya Gardia. Did I pronounce that right? Yeah?
You
My
can
name is Megan. I'm substituting for
Oh,
Leah today.
substituting.
Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, I completely mispronounced your name if that's not you at all. So if you could state your full name, that'd be great. Thank you.
I'm Megan Vildebo. So, hello, board members, and thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. My name is Megan Vildebo, and I would like to update you on a few of the amazing things happening at Mount Carmel. We recently put on our winter formal dance themed A Whole New World, hosted at Liberty Station. It was an amazing dance that included a photo booth with live characters from Aladdin. Earlier in February, we hosted a week-long visit from the WASC Council, where they observed what it's like to be a student at Mount Carmel. Many of our students met with the council to share their experiences on how the Sun Devil Way is in effect here on our campus. Our Performing Arts Department has been working hard because our Performing Arts Department has been hard at work as our Mount Carmel High School choir just produced a Valentine's Day concert cleverly titled That's Amore. Our drama program is preparing for our spring musical, Cabaret, which is projected to have a very high attendance. Last month, the senior class hosted Mr. Sun Devil, an amazing night filled with performances and laughter in the style of a male-spirited pageant. Our Sun Devils are very excited about starting a new trimester, and our seniors on campus are looking forward to graduation. With all of the wonderful things happening at Mount Carmel, it's easy to see why it's great to be a Sun Devil. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. You guys are welcome to stay, free to go if you have homework. I know how excited you are to start the new trimester. You just reported on it. So thank you very much for your reports. At this time, we're going to move to public comments. Dr. Patel.
Yes, several public comments. First up is Stephen DeMatteo.
And it's Stephen DiMatteo, just for the record.
Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. On February 14th, a violent attack occurred at Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, that took the lives of 17 innocent people. The attack shook the nation and made us wonder how such a horrific event could occur in such an unsuspecting place. Personally, that incident hit close to home because I grew up in Coral Springs, the town adjacent to Parkland, and Stoneman Douglas was my rival high school. I've often remarked how Coral Springs is a lot like Rancho Bernardo, affluent, diverse, suburban, the kind of place where, quote, these things don't happen. On February 14th, a violent attack also took place at Bernardo Heights Middle School when a student blindly assaulted another with a pair of scissors, cutting the victim on the side of his neck. That attack also hit close to home because the victim in that attack was our son. It's been 3 weeks since that incident occurred, and since then we have learned a lot about Bernardo Heights Middle School and the Poway Unified School District's ability to ensure our students' safety. I'll summarize with a few key observations. Communication is poor amongst school administrators, teachers, and parents. Administrators do not openly communicate to their teachers, staff, or parents when there is an incident on campus. In our case, teachers did not know of the incident until students informed them on the next school day. Teachers are vital to ensuring the safety of the campus and our students. They are the eyes and the ears of the school. So why aren't they informed when there is an incident? Why weren't parents informed? What example does this set for our students who witnessed the attack and then heard nothing from the teachers and parents that they look to for guidance? There are ways to do this and ensure the privacy of everyone involved. They should be explored. Administrators lack crisis management skills. From the beginning, administrators downplayed the incident and failed to follow established protocol. School resource officers were not involved even though our son was violently attacked with a deadly weapon. In fact, the police were not involved until we had informed administrators that we filed felony charges against the alleged attacker. What training do administrators receive to handle campus violence and prevent incidents from occurring? What happens if administrators do not follow established protocol? Our son has never been offered counseling from the school or district. Why not? Correction, he was offered counseling today after the administrators read this on Facebook. There is not a zero tolerance policy for violence in the Poway Unified School District. We were baffled when we learned this. Other school districts have a zero tolerance policy for violence. Why don't we? Does this mean that we condone certain types of violence on campus? In Bernardo Heights Middle School's literature to parents and students, it's clear what happens with violations of the school's drug, dress code, and cell phone policies, but not where they draw the line on violence. In fact, page 19 of the handbook states the following behaviors will not be tolerated, but then doesn't list any behaviors. What example does this set for our students?
I'm sorry, your time is up. Christine DiMatteo? I still don't think I got that right.
DiMatteo. And I'm just going to continue. So another key observation that we made was the lack of supervision for our children on campus. The night before the incident, there was a desperate plea by our son's teacher for volunteers to help supervise an activity on campus the following day, the activity during which our son was assaulted. We learned that the school has no policy in place to support teachers who do not have adequate supervision for special events that draw them away from their students. Have teachers identified this as a problem and voiced their concern to administrators? Do parents know how and when they are needed? There is no reason why this can't happen again. The demographics and community dynamic of Parkland and Coral Springs are very similar to Poway and Rancho Bernardo. Both communities are proud of their school district's reputation, deep community ties, and the high quality of life. We all need to realize that we are as vulnerable of these types of events as anyone else in the country, and we need to be proactively prepared to prevent them from happening again. We are very fortunate that our son walked away from this incident, but that should not discount the violent nature of the attack nor the school's mishandling of the incident. At first, we resisted going public with our story because we felt that the process needed to play out and either resolve the issue or expose where improvements could be made. Then we realized this is our problem, not our family's problem, but our community's problem. We are all going to conquer this issue if we work together and take action to keep our children safe. We are all responsible for our students' safety, Administrators, teachers, parents, and children. The district and school leaders must provide the resources necessary to protect our students and secure our campuses, and should stop at nothing short as ensuring this happens. Teachers must demand more from their administrators to take more active role in reporting what they see and hear in the classrooms. Parents need to have real conversations with their children about what happens at school every day. Ask them about the vaping in the bathrooms, the fights that are filmed during school and posted on YouTube. Who are the bullies? You'll be shocked, but you must know and take action. Our young adults know what is going on, and we need to make them feel safe and secure and empower them to participate in ensuring their own safety. It is imperative that school leaders critically evaluate how they handled this incident and identify where they can implement controls to prevent it from happening again. Thank you very much for hearing us, and we look forward to working with the district and helping these situations. Thank you.
Okay.
Rebecca,
First of all, thank you so much for your comments. The board just learned about the incident that happened to your child today, and are sorry to hear that, and we hope he's doing well. Dr. Phelps would like to say a few words.
So, I'm sorry about the incident with your child. We do have your statements here and the details of that. I'm going to ask Dr. Robertson and her staff to follow up with the school. But you're certainly right. There's something that we can always do to improve our processes, so I appreciate you bringing the details to our attention. But we do take safety very seriously, and we do want all of our families and our children to feel safe. It is a priority. But there's certainly a lot of things that we can do to improve, and we will work towards ensuring that we get better at servicing our students. So thank you.
Dr. Patel, next speaker, please.
Rebecca Cole.
Good evening. My name's Rebecca Cole, and I can't even look at my comments right now because I'm so stunned to hear that this is the first day that you've heard about that incident. And to me, what it does is it just shows the lack of communication and the lack of what you're saying and the validity of what you're saying is that safety is important to all of you. At Bernardo Heights Middle School, and I have an 8th grader there has been bullying, there's been vaping, kids come to school with alcohols, there's bullying, there's homosexual and heterosexual kids making out on campus so that it makes kids feel uncomfortable. There's lack of supervision, so chaotic rallies spark up in the middle of the common areas and in the quads. It's unbelievable to me. And there's fighting all the time. My son gets in the car and tells me repeatedly, so-and-so got into a fight. And it's not speculation or the rumor mill like the principal likes to tell me, because I know some of these kids. My son plays baseball with some of these kids. So it's validated when I talk to the parents, asking if that person is okay. It's running wild. When I ask about the supervision at Bernardo Heights, I have been told by the principal she simply cannot be everywhere. And I ask you, why not? I think that is a coward answer. And if she can't be everywhere, by golly, teachers and security and anyone who is there should be everywhere. You should be greeting the kids when they come into school. They should be showing them and saying goodbye when they come out. They should be in the bathrooms so that kids can actually use the bathrooms. And they can't currently because kids are peeing, urinating all over the toilet paper and peeing on the floor. So my son had to have the principal tell him, you can't use this bathroom, right? And so on and on that goes. And the reason this is happening is because of the lack of supervision. The reason that the 8th grade behavior is festering and escalating so that kids can assault another child with a school supply is because, and I hope that you find this as incredulous as I do, there is no mental health curriculum at Bernardo Heights Middle School. Not anything being done. And it's confirmed. At my daughter's elementary school, there's a little bit of counseling being done using curriculum. But at Bernardo Heights, which is the size of the size of a small high school, there is no mental health curriculum. So kids who cut, whose parents are divorcing, who might be gay, who have anxiety, who feel nervous about some of the things that have happened at school, they get nothing. So if a teacher sees someone's cutting, there's no resource for them. The counselors aren't equipped and don't have the curriculum to do that. And why is that? I'm truly like to know. I think there needs to be more curriculum and there needs to be more supervision. The yard duties, the aggression, the meanness, this disrespect that's happening is out of control. Tell me what to do and I'll fix it, because I can get a few parents that can get stuff done and I'll have it done in 10 days. How long will it take you?
Next speaker.
Next speaker is Janet Latang.
Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Kim Phelps, Superintendent's Council, and Board of Trustees. Tonight, I'd like to address the LCAP, and now that the information gathering process for the LCAP is complete, I'd like to request that LSS and Information and Technology Department evaluate our current LCAP electronic survey to see if that electronic survey can be improved. In particular, the current electronic survey asks for comments on both the district and the site level, but the site level comments are not getting to the site administration. So if we can make an improvement so that the people who are using this the survey can comment what school they're talking about when they're sharing comments, and then that could get to the administration, that would be wonderful. And then, again, we could hear more wonderful comments and comments that we've heard tonight. I mean, we have to keep having this information get to our administration. Also, I am pleased to share that this month a POSD committee will begin work to draft a strategic arts plan for our school district. Hooray. Thank you very much. That's so exciting for me, and I'm so thrilled that this process is starting so we can support our performing arts and visual and performing arts in the district. Let's see, I also know that the Poway High School teachers in visual and performing arts are quite excited about this process. I spoke with them. Finally, I know that the fine student musicians and performers throughout POSD would appreciate your attendance at one of the upcoming concerts, and a great opportunity would be April 3rd through 5th at the Poway Performing Arts Center, when most of the bands and orchestras in PUSD will be performing on those 3 days. And the daytime concerts are free, so what could be better? Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Gabriella Dao. I would like to know whether you wanted this at public comment. Since it's safety, we do have an agenda item of 7.3. Would you like to speak at 7.3?
Yeah, because I'd like to follow what some of these other parents said.
So now or 7.3?
Now, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
I'm here tonight because, like all parents, and I would like to believe all community members, I want my children and all teachers to come home alive from school. And to that end, I want to address the safety plan. We keep hearing that the school has updated safety plans. We heard that the site councils review the safety plans. That was something that Board Member Patel mentioned at the Rancho Bernardo High forum. Board President T.J. Zane, of course, has mentioned that also at his big public events. And aside from the fact that people like my husband who have served on site council and other parents said we never reviewed anything regarding security, nor would we have been qualified to provide input into school security. I did look at the 6-page charts, or a chart that was on a 6-page safety plan, at least for Rancho Bernardo High. The word shooter, the word gun, crisis, emergency, that's not on that small chart. And I do know that Dr. Phelps addressed this 2013 security plan and said that that is actually a facility security assessment. An audit of procedures, practices, recommendations of safety measures, and yes, phase 1 was completed in 2014, even though the cover page says 2013, but it's clear that a new assessment is needed now, and the district is apparently currently addressing that. You can't have a plan if you don't have an up-to-date assessment. What an assessment does is tell you where the gaps are and tell you the reality of the current situation. That's what allows you to actually create a plan. So this big hotline was launched, and I called the hotline wondering, is this part of some plan? I got a call back from a sheriff's captain, Duckworth, and we chatted. We had a very good conversation, and he said, yes, we used to coordinate with the school district back in 2013. Whatever happened to that? That's a good question. Whatever happened since then? I know that Superintendent Phelps is new, but we had an interim superintendent, Dr. Tony Apostle. He was outstanding, a consummate professional, and he delivered a 21-point plan to the board. And I'm speaking to Michelle O'Connor-Ratcliffe, to T.J. Zane, and Darsh Patel, because this board is controlled by the three of you. And so I want to know, when he gave the recommendation to ASAP, create a safe schools assessment, to conduct a security threat analysis, to do emergency training, response, and resource preparation for hostile intruders in 2016, why wasn't that done back then? Why wasn't action taken? Why wasn't a plan created? And so that is what we need to address. You can't tell parents that we have a plan in place when we do not. And we have graffiti with KKK and swastikas. That is also something that we have to have an honest conversation about. And I want that honesty to come from T.J. Zane, our board president, who has promoted a school board candidate who dressed as a Nazi into a position of leadership. I've asked you about it privately, and I'm asking you directly, publicly, to please address that circumstance. It speaks to your judgment, and it speaks to the fact that we cannot trust you to handle these issues when you have that type of a background. So please address that. You have the lives of 35,000 children.
Thank you, Ms. Dow. I'll address the ad hominem attack and the incorrect facts that you have at your hand when it gets to my board member remarks. Thank you.
The next speaker is Grant Price.
Good evening. As you heard, my name is Grant Price, and I'm here tonight representing the RB Corral. And I'd like to comment on the new facility use fee structure and reservation platform that was proposed at last month's meeting. First, I'd like to provide some background information on the RB Corral in case anyone's not aware of it, of this vital community group. We've been in existence for over 40 years. We have approximately 125 members, and over 80 of our members live in the Poway Unified School District. We present holiday shows in December, and scholarship award shows in June. Each year, thousands of people attend our shows at the Poway Performing Arts Center. As a 501c3 nonprofit, a prime mission of our chorale is to award scholarships each year to high school seniors planning to study music to assist with their tuition at a college of their choice. The scholarship finalists perform at the June shows where they receive their awards. This year, we're happy to be able to award at least $15,000 in scholarships. But over the years, we have awarded over $100,000 to students in the Poway Unified School District. To prepare for our shows, we've been using Poway school facilities for decades, and currently we use the multipurpose room at Painted Rock Elementary. Under the current program, we're not being charged as the custodian is scheduled during our Tuesday rehearsals. We don't require any setup or any teardown, and we generate very little trash. The new facility use fee proposal introduces a tiered fee structure. If the proposal is implemented and we are designated in the B or C tier, the cost to the chorale would drastically impact our ability to award scholarships, perhaps even to the point of us being unable to continue this important program for the students. We respectfully request that, should the proposal be implemented, we would be designated in the A tier or somehow grandfathered under our existing no-charge arrangement. We'd like to continue our mission to provide scholarships to high school students, which support Poway Unified School District's core values, and we need your support in keeping our costs at a minimum. Thank you very much for your time.
Next speaker is Mary Sundberg. Is it Wielden?
Good evening. My name is Mary Sundberg Wielden, and for 30 years I've been a resident and a homeowner here in Rancho Penasquitos. I'm also the past president of the Wrangler Square Dance Club. The Wranglers are a 501c nonprofit organization that provides recreational dance opportunities, and they do fundraising both as a nonprofit organization and as individuals. We're feeling very threatened by this new tiered system of fees that are being offered to the public and to 501c nonprofit organizations. It really threatens the heart of what nonprofits do in our community. Our members do represent the backbone of this community and a partnership with the homeowners and parents that strengthen this entire community. The district really needs to look at the nonprofits and the role that those nonprofits could take on campus. Some of the problems that are happening right now with violence that I'm hearing could be addressed by the better use of the nonprofit organizations that exist on the school campuses, but they're being forced out by these fees that are being imposed. It's really offensive to people that have been in the district area for many, many years. I know that I am the mother of 3 adult children who are PUSD graduates. And as a teacher and a parent, I know that the extent of my subsidies for the local public education of my own children was happening every single year of their K-12 careers, all 3 of them. And I also subsidized other children as well who could not afford to pay. By keeping these children engaged in positive activities, you really lessen their ability to be involved in non-productive activities. We are volunteers, and we are the public. We are the public that is paying PUSD through our property taxes, our local school bonds, and all of these other things that put money into the pockets of the Poway Unified School District. We are an integral part of the partnership with the school district. The students, the community, and this homeschool community connection needs to remain strong if the Poway Unified School District wants to remain strong. If they force out the community and these nonprofit organizations, it is going to weaken the school district in ways that are immeasurable. We strongly request that the Poway School Board rescind the action to increase the user fees for the school facilities that could potentially destroy us or at least impact our ability to help others. It's really a critical issue at this point, and I know that the feelings are running very high on this particular issue. There is a Civic Center Act that allows for fees to be charged, but I know that as the president of the organization, for many years, this club, 40 years, was able to perform and entertain and keep dance going in the community, as well as to do nonprofit organization fundraising activities. And that has been diminished in the last couple of years. We know that.
Sorry, your time is up. Next speaker is Rosita Bagheri.
Good evening. My name is Rosita Bagheri. I have to apologize for my last-minute ad hoc speech that I had to put together once other community members informed us of this sudden increase. So with that, I'll start. I am a volunteer and an assistant principal for the Persian language schools that has been in existence in San Diego County for 30 years. And for the past 20 years, we have used the Poway School District facility on Thursdays and on Sundays for the past 14 years at Mount Carmel High School. Our language school is approved by Poway School District, and we have actually students currently enrolled in our program that enjoy the credit that they receive while attending our school. I myself have raised and been a Poway School District or a Poway resident for the past 30 years, and I've got children that graduated from here, and I enjoy this community immensely. Our school and language program also provides language program to roughly, when we calculated it, 57% of our 275 student enrolled are Poway School District students as well. Looking at the adjusted or revised facility use that is being proposed, at the minimum between both of our classes that we offer, and it's a 4-hour class every Sunday and 2 hours on Thursdays, we're going to be sustaining something in excess of $20,000 a year. And that is immense because we offer the classes on Sundays throughout the school, so from September till June. So this is a huge impact to us to provide the service to the community, and it will be an impact to our students because we're all volunteers, and predominantly our registration fee covers our rental and our supplies. So this will be a huge impact to our budget as well. So we ask the honorable members to please reconsider and also expedite the still vague allocation of what these groups are. So we provide a service that we are a 501c entity, and the grouping system, we don't know whether we fit your B classification or your C classification. So at this point, we're kind of not even sure what it is. But I appreciate the time that you provided us, and I again urge you to reconsider.
Next speaker is Brian Reschke.
Hello, I'm Brian Reschke. I am president of rpbasketball.org. We have 550 players in our league. 150 of those are high school players. With the new fee increase, if we were categorized as a C, we would have to eliminate our high school program or transfer to the Scripps Ranch facilities, which are $65 an hour and not $240 an hour per court. I think market factors should be considered in your fee increases. We currently are somewhere between A and B, and I do not know if we would fall between B and C after the change. Based on we meet the mission statement that you guys are also going for. 100%. Most of our children are Poway School. Some of them do go private and homeschool. But I do feel like we meet the mission statement to be in a B category. And I'm just concerned that if we do get thrown into the C category, we'll end up canceling the 150 high school players in our league. These are high school players that did not make their high school sports teams. Some of them do have attitude problems. We, work out their frustrations on the court. But the bright side of this is we have 10 high school students volunteered this year to coach younger children. Those students put in over 40 hours of work in the season in managing these younger students that are also in the Poway district. Without the high school division, I would not have access to these coaches. So I do ask that you guys do reconsider the fee structure. As I said before, we would be okay with the Group B. We make our fees cover that, but going to Group C would literally be impossible. The next item, we do give 5 scholarships out to needy families in the area, and we also offer jobs. We have about 30 students who are employed as referees and scorekeepers within our league, and those positions would also, part of those positions would also go away. And the opportunities of finding new high school students would also go away. So I just ask that you guys do reconsider your fee proposal, and as the safety concerns, I just wonder what these 150 students are going to do if they don't have an outlet like sports, and they have no outlets, that they will go into something else, and it probably will not be beneficial to the safety concerns that we have. Thank you.
Those are all the speakers for public comment.
Associate Superintendent Little.
Thank you, President Zane. First of all, I'd like to apologize to the user groups for the lack of clarity in the new fee schedule. So we added, the last speaker with the basketball team, we added Group D, which is the commercial rates, which are really what groups that have no affiliation whatsoever with our district would pay, which obviously is no one in this room. So the $200+ per hour for a gym is, say, if Qualcomm wanted to rent one of our gyms. So the speaker who just spoke, as opposed to $240, your rate would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $70 per hour. So I think there's some misunderstanding. I spoke with 2 people this afternoon who also thought they were in Group D, the commercial group, as opposed to Group B or Group C. So we do need to do some work around defining those Groups B and those Groups C, and we will work with you to do that, and we'll get that out to all of our end users, our community partners. I'd also like to say that once we have that conversation with you and decide whether you're a Group B or Group C, if after learning that you still feel it's a hardship on your group, Director Costa and I would be happy to sit down with you and talk with you about other options, including grandfathering you in, which of course would be a decision for the superintendent and the board, but certainly not impossible given your long-term relationships with the district. We did send communications out this week to over 200 of our facility users. We talked about why we had to increase the fees based on increased costs, the fact that we've been operating at a maintenance loss, things that are true and real but don't necessarily impact you directly. So we had a lot of work done by 2 different committees to determine these rates. These were not pulled out of the air. We did a lot of work with respect to surveying other districts to come up with some numbers that we felt were fair and competitive, yet would recover the costs that it take to manage, maintain, and keep our facilities in good repair. But having said that, we're certainly willing to work with any of our community partners to look at their particular circumstances. I would encourage you to call me to schedule a meeting, and we can have that conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Little.
I have a follow-up question. Mr. Little, I just have a follow-up question on this. So when are these new fees scheduled to be officially implemented, and does it require prior board approval?
We shared this information with the board at the last meeting. So the aquatic fees will go into effect in mid-June, and the new facility fees will go into effect July 1st. and the superintendent has the authority, obviously, to make these changes and implement these fees, and that's why we shared them last meeting, to put that out there publicly and get some feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Little and Ms. Beatty. At this time, we'll move to, no more speakers, Dr. Patel?
No more speakers.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move to item 5.1, approval of the consent calendar. And we'll go on down the line. Is there anything to, or is there a motion, or do you have anything to pull, Mr. Conner-Ratcliffe?
I have a comment, but I don't want to pull it. So I guess I'd like to wait and see if anyone else pulls it before I make my comment on it, because I don't feel the need to pull the item, but I do have a comment before we vote.
Okay, Ms. Beatty.
I have three: 5.2E, 5.3A, and 5.4C. 5.2E.
These are all for pulling or clarification prior to just to pull them? Okay. 5.2E, 5.3A, and 5.4C.
Ms. Beatty got mine.
Dr. Patel. Right.
Ms. Beatty got mine too. Thank you.
And I think that the one that Ms. Beatty probably pulled is 5.3A, which is also mine and maybe yours and yours. So, yeah, we're all on the same page as far as having questions or concerns about 5.3A. Okay, so is there a motion to approve the consent calendar absent those three items that were pulled by Ms. Beatty?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion approved by Mr. Conner-Ratcliffe, second by Dr. Patel. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Approved 4-0. We'll now take those items in order, starting with 5.2E. And that is, pardon me.
Yes. This is a request for approval to award a contract for a fee justification study and a school facilities need analysis to Cobell Gruber Public Finance. This is what's required for us to be able to implement our developer fees level 1s, 2, and 3.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Ms. Beatty.
Okay, just briefly, so previously our CFD, our former CFD administrator, the Delinka Group, provided these, so I was curious why we now have a new administrator. So it seems like we're segregating the responsibilities, and I was curious go in that direction.
The previous CFD administrator did a lot of work for the district that was over and above managing our CFDs. We've been sort of parsing out that contract, and we went out obviously with an RFP for this work because we know that there are many firms in the area that do this job very well. So this was the firm selected by the committee in response to a competitive RFP.
Okay. And are there costs? A lot of the substantive information is fairly boilerplate. Are there costs in line with the costs that we were charged for the previous?
Yes, they weren't very far off.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion for approval on item 5.2E?
I'll move to approve.
Move to approve by Trustee Beatty.
Second.
Second by Dr. Patel. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Next item, 5.3A. Dr. Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. President. So tonight we brought forward under the consent calendar for the board's action our site annual updated school safety plans. This is a process that goes on at all of our schools led by the principal. They work together with either their school site council, and some schools actually have a separate safety committee. And there is a process that's a common process for the reports that you see. Questions?
Ms. Beatty pulled the item, so I'll allow Ms. Beatty to go first.
if this was one other people were going to pull, I'll go ahead and defer and to other. Was it?
Go ahead.
So obviously, this has been a topic of conversation. We approve these every year, these school site safety plans. One of the things I had noticed from previous year, and this year is no exception, that these mostly have to do with at least the content of these. They're usually roughly about 6-page spreadsheets, is student social emotional well-being at the school site, and how that can be addressed and improved upon. There are some of them dealing with issues like entry and sign-in of visitors, but that's if it exists at all in the plans, just a very small piece of it. And there's a lot of them have discussed parking lot safety, little fender benders as parents pick up and drop off. So a couple of questions that I had. One is, it has been mentioned that I guess these are the plans that Site Council signs off on. And on the very last page of all of these reports, there's a space where a box for where law enforcement has reviewed these and where Site Council has reviewed these, and then where the board has reviewed these. The vast majority of these have just been left blank. So does that mean they have not been reviewed by law enforcement and Site Council before they came to us? And by the way, these are for 18-19, the ones, so we're looking at them, going forward.
Okay. Any other questions?
You want me to throw out some other questions, or
yes,
just deal with
Cindy
that one?
Hicks, can you come up, because you work closely with the process around this, so she'll be able to respond to some of those questions.
Would you like all the questions at this time then? Or?
Yeah, I think we should just take all the questions as they come. Thank you, Ms. Hicks.
So, Ms. Hicks, before you start, we'll go ahead and do that then. And then if, in the process of you answering, if anybody feels as though something was left out or forgotten, we can go back to you. So, Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe.
I did read them and found many of them, not all of them, but many of them to be very lacking. I would like to see at this point, I realize there are time constraints because these are due under the statute and we've got to approve them, we've got to get them out. But they are lacking, and I'd like to see every single school site revise its plan to take into account the parent, staff, and the student input that was generated at Tuesday's safety forum, or not at the forum, but as a result of. And all of them are having their individual site safety meetings, many of which occurred after they had already submitted these for approval. I would love to see these go back, even though I realize at this point they aren't the ones that are going to be approved by this board and approved at the higher levels where we're required to submit them every year. But I think some of them look like they wrote the same thing they wrote last year, and they wrote the same thing they write every year. Some of them, again, were really good, and they offered a lot of suggestions for facilities changes and updates that they need, and I appreciated those ones. And I kind of want to call out the ones that I thought were really good. Black Mountains was good. Deer Canyons, Del Norte. I'm going to miss a few that I thought were good, but those ones stuck out as being more comprehensive, more thoughtful. I'd like to see all of them go back, because we're in a little bit of a heightened, not a little bit, this is a new reality, and we're having all these meetings. Let's do something with what the information and ideas generated, and let's put them into an updated version of this, because I do understand that we have to approve these, but they are too little. So that's my comment.
So you know that those are.
We're going to let the board members ask their questions first, and then we'll turn it over to you. Dr. Patel. Yeah, we're going to completely overwhelm you, give you an opportunity.
Are you taking notes?
No. You can remind me.
Dr. Patel, go ahead.
So I'll give my comments with a smile, but they are slightly critical as well. I noticed several of them had only one goal written in under safety for personal as well as for facilities improvements for safety. Some of them seem like they're really deferred maintenance items and not really actually safety issues. A few of them had significant just editorial errors in them, no spaces between any word or sentences at all. So it was just a single run-on gigantic string of letters. So I think if we're going to sign these and put them on as officially things that the board has signed on, it would be better if they didn't have these technical editorial mistakes, as well as being a little less anemic. So is there, first time I'm going through this like with my eyes wide open. What is the exact process? How many steps do these plans go through? When I was on the school site council, I was on the safety committee, and at that time we did review them pretty heavily. And of course our recommendations were just as parents, and they would go on to law enforcement and more professional people to add in their official comments. Ours were as parents, what we would observe. At that time, for example, I observed that maybe parents should badge in when they go on field trips so that the school knows who's on the field trip, which parents are there. In case they have siblings at a school site where something is going on, they would know how to contact them. So this is the kind of feedback we would give. So what is the process for that? I'm still trying to understand that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Patel. I don't need to be repetitious. I think each of the board members at the dais has shared a number of the concerns that I have as well. Lacking was a good description, especially in the context of our increased focus presently on school campus safety. And I remember seeing one report in particular where it had a target end date of February 30th, 2019. I had to double check, but there's no February 30 in 2019.
You're right.
So to the extent that the board is going to put its signature on this potentially, or when they're ready to put our signatures on it, I think that some of these things need to be addressed and more specifics. Ms. Beatty referred to some things that probably ought to have certain signatures included on them. My question that I have also is, I understand that school sites need to adopt and approve these by March 1st. What is the deadline for the board to adopt the school sites approved plans?
March 1st. The reason it's late this year is we called for Sacramento to explain that the meetings, because of the change in the February meeting, was so early. We had a new process this year. They are actually done online. And yes, Ms. Beatty, the school sites have seen them. I do have signature pages. What we ask, and law enforcement has reviewed them. Law enforcement also comes to my office here and goes through each and every one of them and then makes comments with me that we share back to each individual school, whether it's sheriff or PD. Because our board meeting in February was different, we got them in, put them on this meeting. The new process is it's online now, so I hear what you're saying, and we'll work on getting those corrected. They had some difficulty doing them online. But what I need you to remember is this is a small segment of the Comprehensive Safety Plan. If you notice at the top, it's Section 8 only. This plan is derived by a 16-page vulnerability checklist that the Site Safety Committee walks the campus with this checklist and determines, are you familiar with it? It is a very comprehensive checklist. They go through and identify the areas. So deferred maintenance, yes, but it's a safety plan, and what the state asks for is a parental input on what they feel would make their campus safer. So if that group picked the blacktop being cracked or whatever, that's a safety issue for them, and that's what they write in. This isn't the part of the comprehensive plan. The tactical responses that are done in conjunction with law enforcement, you don't see, because they are tactical responses, but they're part. The whole comprehensive plan is broken into two sections. We have the public view, which is by Ed Code 32880 through 32889, and it lists everything we need in our comprehensive plan. Parents can go and see that. They can ask their staff about it. This section also goes in the public view because it is generated by their site council. So then the next part of the comprehensive plan that you don't see and the public doesn't see is actually emergency responses. Law enforcement does not recommend, and CDE has given us permission in EDCO to redact any tactical responses. So when you're talking about armed assailant, active shooter, fire, earthquake, where we're going to evacuate to, what people are in charge of what, how it's going to happen, what a reunification plan looks like, those are all kept confidential.
So just a quick question on that, and maybe you know this and maybe you don't, but I would swear we've seen that before up here. We didn't get it this year, but we've seen it in past years, at least once. We have. And I was wondering why this was, we're literally only seeing what the public sees up here. And
This is all I've brought forward the last like 6 to 7 years. So I know
more previously. I guarantee we saw more than
I know
this
what
in
we did
previous
one year
years.
to make a clearer understanding for the board is the whole plan was shared with the board. So we showed you what the black notebook looked like. We showed you what the red tactical response notebook looked like. So there were no questions on what was contained as part of a comprehensive safety plan. So you had a better understanding that this portion is just a small snippet.
So, and you're referring to the district-wide comprehensive plan, of which these Section 8, whatever,
Section
are
8.
just subsets of the district-wide comprehensive plan.
Yes,
And I
ma'am.
think that's where the gap is. I mean, obviously, we're not members of the public. We're the highest body in charge of the district. And so we do need to have all of that. And this is provided through our portal on the district's website. The board shared, because that's the missing piece. And I know it's referenced here in the green sheet, the comprehensive school site safety plan. And then you're talking about the tactical responses. Now that is individual site tactical responses?
Yes, ma'am.
As well as the district-wide, or just for the...
I can show you. Dr. Phelps has a book in her office. We all have the black book. So the beginning of the comprehensive plan, which meets Ed Code, every section's the same across the district. So it talks about our bullying program, talks about harassment and hate crimes, dress code, all the things that make a campus safe according to California Department of Ed. That's one and the same for every school across the district. So no matter where parents are, the same information is put in there. The difference would be dress code at elementary is going to be different than high school. Section H, which you see, and then what I call the red notebook or the tactical, is designed by each individual school according to their campus. So their ingress and egress would be different, so they make those themselves. And they are designed to meet the needs of that school in the event of an emergency.
And there was reference to the comprehensive plan being in the superintendent's office for viewing, and so that's the district. I'm assuming that's the district-wide master plan.
That's the black book.
With some redactions as necessary. Or
Dr. Phelps at this time just has the black book, which is the template across the district. I am now in the process of reviewing the tactical plans. There were some changes sent back, so if you need to see tactical plans, you can see them. You can call me. You can come in, and those are the actual plans for each school.
Are those accessible to the public? I'm a bit confused because there was a reference that members of the public could make an appointment to go to the superintendent's office if they wanted to see the comprehensive plan. So I'm just curious.
That would be the black notebook and the plans that you have in front of you.
With certain redactions or things that aren't a part of it, or the stuff that's...
The stuff that's tactical is in a separate notebook. It's in a red notebook because it's kept locked at the school sites. There's a red law enforcement and a district. So law enforcement has their own tactical response notebook with layouts of the schools and that type of thing.
Just a quick housekeeping. So we had 36 plans. Did D39C do one because it wasn't posted?
I will check. I'm sure they did, or I would have been calling them up screaming.
We didn't get it.
It may have been my error to not upload it, so I apologize if I missed that one.
Any other questions?
Others?
Thank you, Cindy.
So,
you have another question?
Dr. Robertson may make one comment
You
to
may.
the board. I've been working with Mr. Little, and just so you are aware, as of next year, the 18-19 school year, these safety plans will be part of the district audit. Am I correct?
You mean the external audit, the annual external audit that's done, or
Yes.
internal?
External audit. They will be part of the external audit next year, and they will be seeing everything.
great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I guess my question is, what are our options to the extent we have reservations concerning the quality of the plans that were submitted? And as much as we're required to approve them at this evening's meeting, do we approved and contingent upon going back and making grammatical, date corrections, spacing, all those sorts of things. Can you address that? I don't know what our options are in that regard.
Well, I'd like them to be approved, and we can go back and clean up the grammatical. Part of the challenge here is these did come from site teams and parents that had input there, and that's what was reported here. So we would have to completely do that process over again, and we'd have to figure out if, I mean, Ed Code is very clear around a March 1st approval, so.
So they're clear on a March 1st approval, but what about the time to clean them up? There's no time.
Well, we can clean up the grammatical maybe tonight, but other than that, no, for the whole process.
I would recommend that we go ahead and approve these. I think a lot of the work that needs to be done with regard to safe schools ought to be done at the district administration and board level. I just received, and perhaps other board members received as well, the California School Boards Association Safe Schools Handbook, Strategies for Governing Boards to Ensure Student Success. There's another workshop on our plate potentially. There's a policy development worksheet for school safety. I mean, I think this is something that ought to be moving forward, and that's what we're doing, moving forward, trying to assess where we are and how we can make improvements. Should probably be done at the district-wide level with the board and superintendent and our team, our staff, and then figuring out how we can support our school sites within that endeavor.
So I'm hearing some support for moving this forward as is now, but also following through on a board workshop to address
the comprehensive safety plan, district-wide comprehensive safety plan that can help support our school sites.
Agreed. I'll take that as a motion then, and I'll second, if that's acceptable to you.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Further discussion?
I just want to say that, after the board approves it, if the board members have specific plans that you would like staff to look at, we can follow that up with the school sites, those individual school sites, and have them make those edits, and improvements, even though the board approves them this evening, and we can make some of those minor changes. But I do agree with Ms. Beatty that we do need to move forward with an assessment and an audit, as Community Member Dao had mentioned, and then develop a safety assessment plan and do a workshop as well to follow up as far as what we're going to do district-wide.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Next item is 5.4C. Mr. Jimenez.
Thank you. This is a recommendation to approve the classification allocation for the new project manager construction position to grade 13 of our management personnel salary schedule. This position would oversee the planning and execution of all the district's capital construction projects, deferred maintenance, modernization projects, new construction, safety projects, developing those plans and designs. Currently in our district, we have over $5 million in safety-related projects. At over a dozen sites at this time, we have over $2 million in deferred maintenance projects at another dozen schools as well. The position would oversee and be directly involved in that day-to-day work.
Trustee Beatty.
I'm not able to support this agenda item, and I would like to explain my rationale why. Since the advent of my tenure on the board, management positions have been added in a piecemeal fashion. And what I would like going forward, before any new positions are added, is to have presented to the board a comprehensive management staffing plan that is thoughtful and strategic in order to avoid the potential for waste or inefficiencies. And as part of this comprehensive staffing plan, an assessment should be done to figure out, what work there is to be done and who are the best people to take on those responsibilities. start from that vantage point, and then figure out between the various employees that we have now how the work is divvied up, whether certain positions that are currently in the district are necessary, and then figure out what the needs are moving forward, and where we need to add positions. In addition to asking for a comprehensive management staffing plan, I also had previously expressed concern about how this position was going to be funded, namely partially with Melrose funds. And it's my feeling that it's not a proper use of those funds. And so unless I'm convinced otherwise, that is also a reason that at this juncture I can't support this position.
So I want to...
Dr. Phelps.
Thank you. Just to provide some clarification, since I've been here, we haven't added any new positions. These are all positions that have existed in the district in some sort of fashion, and we've just either retitled them and reviewed them as aligned their job duties to be more aligned with what is needed in the district. In this particular position for the project manager construction, Mr. Little can address that further, but this is a position that has been vacated since the employee has left, and has been under review and I believe approved by the Personnel Commission to be aligned with based on the need of the district. And that position has been vacant for how many months? Since August. And so Mr. Little can address as far as the need for that position and what he's done to evaluate the rationale behind why this position is coming forward now to be filled.
Thank you, Superintendent. Yes, so Associate Superintendent Jimenez really highlighted the need, which is the building projects and the construction projects and the capital projects that are in the pipeline. So as we shared, we know that we have over $5 million of safety-related projects that need to be accomplished in short order. We know that we have at least $2 million of deferred maintenance projects that need to be accomplished in short order. We have large CFD projects. We're finishing one up at Stone Ranch currently. That's an $18 million project. We have another one at Oak Valley coming online soon. That's a $4 to $5 million project. And we have Mr. Coster and Mr. Wiley doing their best to manage all of that, and it's not possible. In addition, thank you, in addition to the M&O work that Mr. Wiley particularly should be focusing on, given that he's the Assistant Director of Maintenance and Operations. So it's imperative that these gentlemen have some help. We looked at contracting out and paying a third party to come in and manage these projects, but we don't feel that's a good use of district money. It's more expensive, and we give up a little bit of control by having someone on our staff. It adds to the team. It provides more brain trust for our M&O group to work with, which is vital to continue the good work that they're doing. With respect to the funding, all, or most, if not all, and I'd have to go back and confirm, of the agreements related to our CFDs and our school improvement areas allow for reasonable administrative costs related to the management of CFDs and CFD-related projects to be charged against CFD funds. There's 3 buckets of money within those CFD funds. There's the debt service, which of course the 99% of the taxes are going to pay. There's a little piece for administrative costs, and there's a little piece for custodial, which is the cost of sort of continuing with the ongoing projects. We've been funding, so for this particular position, only the pro rata share of the work associated with the CFDs would be charged against the CFDs. So we would obviously track that carefully and monitor it. I hope that answers the questions.
Trustee O'Connor-Ratcliffe.
My understanding also from my questions on this item is that this position isn't necessarily a permanent position. It's here for as long as we need it to oversee these facilities, improvement, these construction projects. And just to Ms. Beatty's point, I would say that comprehensive plans are great, absolutely, but shouldn't rule out the possibility of changing needs, which I think is what we're seeing here. And addressing changing needs in a timely fashion doesn't make it piecemeal. So I'm in support of this because I think there is a need. I'm convinced. And again, I'll leave it there.
Ms. Beatty?
Well, thank you for the explanation, Mr. Little. You do make a compelling case as far as the needs with regard to the projects. My issue goes back, 6 years where we only add positions, we never subtract, and so once in a while we need to figure out if the management structure is set up in the most efficient way. It's not just about adding positions, but figuring out what the job tasks are, what the job descriptions are, what the requirements are and the needs, and then tailoring the organizational structure to that. And so that needs to be done in order to maximize efficiencies, minimize waste. That said, I can see the need for this position. I've never heard, none of our positions have ever been temporary. As I said, that once we a position is created, it's never eliminated since I've been here. With regard to the CFDs, the use of the CFD funds, I did submit a detailed email citing the laws. The law is extremely circumscribed as far as services, and I know incidentals are allowed to be paid for. Certain incidental costs related to the building of infrastructure in Melrose communities. It's because that section is just so circumscribed with regard to permitted services that are allowed to be paid, funding of parks and police and fire. I need some certainty from legal counsel that this is actually a permitted use of funds. We ran into this before. There were some discussions about hiring a position to do some renovations, and it appears that went by the wayside in my mind because it was likely determined that was an impermissible use of the funds. The laws do say that it has to be stipulated in the resolution of formation, which is the guiding document for permitted uses of the expenditure of Melrose monies. It has to say in those documents that they're allowable funds or expenditures. I know I see what you're saying is this would just be considered administrative, and I guess that really depends on the definition of administrative.
With the superintendent's permission, we'll certainly provide you a legal opinion. We have it mostly ironed out, but we can get that to you in short order.
And I just want to address the one other thing, that perhaps it feels like it's piecemeal is actually because it does address your question in regards to the fact that we didn't want to just fill all the vacancies automatically. We wanted to, my leadership team and I wanted to review each vacancy and determine whether or not there's a need or a realignment that needed to happen. So maybe that's perhaps why it feels like it's been piecemeal, because all of the vacancies that existed when we arrived and since our arrival here in the district, we didn't want to just in one swoop just fill them all without evaluating and assessing the need factor.
So it would be good. I don't know that the board's seen an organizational chart, and so it would be good. That's the starting point of what the organization looks for. Just to put a pin in it, if you don't mind, on with regard to the funds. So the section of the Melrose Law, Government Code 53313, that delineates the permitted services that are allowed to be paid for with Melrose funds, says that the CFD can only finance the services authorized in this section to the extent that they are in addition to those provided in the territory of the district before the district was created. And that's also the other issue, is that these services have to predate the services can't have already existed, and if this is replacing a position that existed, i.e. the planning director, then it was an already existing service. So anyway, there's an issue there. Yes, Ms. Patel.
Dr. Patel.
So I just want to clarify a few things in my mind. From my understanding, this is taking an existing position and reshaping it. It's neither creating a new position, nor is it using the exact position and job description of a position that was already in existence.
That's correct.
So it meets those requirements that it would be a new position. Having some experience in project management, and I think Mr. Coster knows how many times I ask him, so what was the change order on that, and why did that happen? And can you please walk me through the steps and the deliverables and when these are going to happen? Project management is absolutely useful, especially in construction. I was a project manager in biotech. I get the need of that, but in construction, it's absolutely essential. I actually find it very appealing that staff has come back with a situation where they can, or at least they've explained to us that they can delineate those services that this project manager would be doing related to the construction costs in the Melrose areas versus those related to deferred maintenance and safety projects. So those are all just time carding and line items of time stamps. I understand that can be done very easily. I absolutely see that this is a necessary position. I don't know how you guys have been doing it so far. The number of dollars and the scope of these projects, it pops out clear as day to me that they're enormous. And if we want to do it right, which I think we really do want to do it right, I think this position is going to be helpful. As long as it's done according to how you've described it, I think it's feasible. It seems to match within the rules and the confines of Ed Code and Melrose law. Thank you. And I motion to approve.
It's a motion to approve by Dr. Patel.
Second.
Second by Mr. Connor Ratcliffe. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries 3-1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 6.1, approval of certification of second interim financial report and approval of resolution number 42-2018 entitled Authorization to Revise the 2017-2018 Budget as reflected in the second interim financial report. Associate Superintendent Little.
Thank you, President Zane. Let me make sure this is on. This evening we bring before the board for consideration and approval the district's second interim budget report. This is for the period up through and ending on January 31st, 2018. We'll do this fairly briefly tonight. The full report, of course, is in your packet. I believe it's 8 pages long. This is a high-level summary of that report. We'll look at our projections for the second interim, our multi-year projections. We'll look at some other funds, and then what lies ahead. What we've done in this presentation is just compare where the district was at first interim, which was through the period of October 31st, 2017, through where we project where we'll finish the year as of January, as I mentioned, 31st, 2018, and then looking at the differences. So this slide is just showing us that since first interim, which the board approved in December, to second interim, we're looking at an increase in revenues of about $2.5 million, so $2,467,864. And we'll take a look at what comprises that increase in a future slide. Moving on to the expenditure side, and this is general fund unrestricted, I should have mentioned. We are looking at a change in expenditures compared to first interim, a decrease of $3.8 million across all district expenditures. So looking at what comprises that delta, so a change in revenues of $2.4 million, a change in expenditures to the good or less, $3.8 million. We're looking at a total change to the budget of $6.3 million approximately. We've accounted for that below. So on the revenue side, we have increased funding of about $1.3 million, mostly due to our increased ADA over the past months. Then we have some decreases in expenditures. And this is typically when school districts sort of square up their staffing for the year. So we look at what did step and column really cost us, and we look at, what did we save in terms of budget for the teachers who retired last year versus what we hired new this year. So that's the attrition piece. And then what positions are on the books that we budgeted for that we haven't filled. So that's the vacancy savings. So on the certificated side, those three criteria that I just mentioned amounted to about a $1.3 million budget savings. On the classified side, step and column movement, net of attrition, longevity, and our vacancy savings resulted in about a $565,000 budget savings. We also finally added our 11 additional teachers that we needed for our enrollment growth into the current year budget. So that was a cost. That's an increase to expenditures of about $800,000. Kudos to the finance team. Mr. Tarantino's here tonight. Joy Ramiro, of course. Great job in terms of analyzing the numbers for second interim. And in doing that, we look at sort of where we think the carryover will end at year end. And so we're adjusting the expenditure side to reflect some carryover that probably won't be spent. So that's $4 million of carryover that the sites probably will not spend this year. So we're reducing the expense by that amount. So it's actually a plus to the bottom line. And then there's some minor personnel adjustments of about $42,000. So that totals the $6.3 million increase in our ending fund balance. And you'll see how that impacts the fund balance in a minute. Turning over to our restricted general fund, we're anticipating about $110,000 more in federal and state funding for the year. And we've added that same $110,000 to the expenditures. So obviously for grants, we're directed and we strive to spend all of the grant money in the year that we receive it. So there's no net impact to the restricted side of the house given the revenues and expenditures. They zero out. So then to summarize, for the general fund, this is combined, general fund, unrestricted and restricted together. At first interim, we were looking at a net activity of about a $16.3 million deficit. At second interim, that has improved by the $6.3 million that we just looked at. So we're looking at a $10 million deficit in the current year. Of course, as you know, over $7 million of that is carryover that we're spending down from last year. So that leaves about a $3 million operating deficit for the current year. I should say, so our beginning fund balance is $65.5 million, call it. We're projecting that with the $10 million deficit, we will end the fiscal year with about $55.5 million in our reserves. This is the breakdown of that $55.5 million. I won't read it to you, but those are the numbers. We've added in a few additional reserves. We felt that it was important to set aside some reserves for textbook adoption. This will be something that you'll see in the future as well. We have quite a few adoptions to get through over the next few years. We set aside $1.5 million for language acquisition program, which began this year, which will be expanded next year and the out years. And then in a previous budget, the board approved a reserve for our technology and innovation division, and we're just actually penciling that in at our second interim report. We still have reserve for budget stabilization of close to $36 million, so 35.8. And we have unrestricted carryover, we mentioned, of $4 million and still a 2% required reserve of $7.5 million. Overall, the $55 million represents about a 15% reserve level, so staff feels that is prudent and substantial. Looking ahead to next year, you've seen these numbers before. There's no change. We haven't refined them yet. We're looking at a $4 million surplus next school year, given the additional money that the governor's budget proposal would bring us, right? So the $18 million of ongoing revenues that would be new to the district, as well as the $10 million of one-time funding based on his proposal. A lot of new money coming in, and if we did nothing else with it, it would go to close the gap, and we'd finish with $4 million to the good. Just moving a year ahead, we have to back out the one-time money, factor in some COLA, and we're looking at a net activity of a negative or a deficit of about $9 million, with reserve levels still being in the 13% neighborhood. And as we continue to refine the numbers vis-a-vis the governor's May revise, as well as our own budget assumptions, we expect and anticipate that this will continue to decrease over the next few months as well. When we bring the budget back to June, depending on the state's fiscal reality, this should be a better number. This year, the finance team, working in collaboration with our program budget directors, has updated all the other district funds for our second interim report. Typically, we've waited to year end to do this, but doing this work now as opposed to waiting to year end will save us time in the long run, but more importantly provides us the opportunity to assess how each fund faces or fares as we move into the final quarter of this fiscal year. So you can see we have the projected revenues for each fund, the projected expenditures, the net activity, the difference between those two, and where we project each fund will finish the current year. No surprises really to talk about. As you know, I'll just draw your attention to Fund 63. That's a big negative number. But that, as you know, is a result of Csba something, I think it's 73, right? And the fact that we have to recognize all of the state's pension liability on our own books. And because that's an enterprise fund and the type of accounting is recognized on this fund summary, unlike all the other funds which are not enterprise funds and don't have that same type of accounting. And if you want more information, Mr. Tarantino would be happy to chat with you about that at length. He's the expert. Let's see. So if there's any questions, I can certainly answer those. What's coming? We're still hopeful that our SERP will be a success. We're waiting. We have one more week to meet our minimum of 90. And once we get that 90, we'll do an analysis, if we're close either way, to see what the numbers look like. Ms. Ramiro and Mr. Tarantino and all of our schools and our departments have begun the budget development work. That's taking place over the next few months. As you know, Dr. Robertson is leading our LCAP charge and our refinements there. We're looking forward to the May revise, refine our own fiscal assumptions, and then here's sort of what we're looking to in terms of calendar for the board over the next few months. And we're right on track. So with that, we'd like to ask the board for its approval that we'll meet our financial obligations this year and for our subsequent 2 years, and that all of the budget adjustments noted in particularly the 8-page detailed document are authorized by the board as presented. Thank you.
Board member comments or motions?
To approve.
Motion to approve by Ms. O'Connor-Ratcliffe. I'll second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is 6.2, Moss Adams Internal Controls Assessment Progress. Associate Superintendent Little.
Yes, thank you, President Zane. This evening, staff is pleased to share our progress with the board with respect to our internal controls assessment that we presented to the board last September. As you'll recall, Moss Adams was here and shared the results of their assessment, which took most of the spring and into the summer of the prior year. Since then, it's been a very collaborative and cross-functional effort. I'd like to thank my colleague to my left here for all his support and help in this. Ms. Ramiro, all of our BSS directors really have led the charge in terms of forming teams to address the internal control gaps and work at mitigating those. We've developed a corrective action matrix, which I believe you've seen, and we've updated. It's on our website as well. We'll make sure the most recent version is there. The corrective action matrix outlines a corrective action plan for each and every control objective that Moss Adams identified in terms of needing improvement. We've crosswalked that with our own external audit, which we shared with the board last December, I think, or November, to make sure that we also were hitting those findings in our matrix as well. And since then, we've implemented many corrective action plans. Tonight, I'm just going to focus quickly on those gaps that had a high, moderate likelihood of occurrence. You'll recall that was sort of how they grouped them, and or have a high, moderate impact of occurrence. So if it happened, it would be significant. So very quickly, I'm just going to identify what the gap was, and you can read for yourself what we've done. So in this one, it was just really a matter of making sure that those who approve reimbursements at the site level were not submitting requests on their own behalf, right? So we've redefined those procedures, we've done site training, and we've provided some clear guidance, and we're monitoring and auditing those regularly, and so that one has been completed. The next one, as you know, has been on the radar screen for some time. Excess vacation balances. The team cross-functionally has done a lot of work with respect to this. We're currently offering monthly reports to our leaders, our site leaders and our departmental leaders, which show their leave balances for all their employees, vacation and sick leave. Thank you to our Director of Payroll, Laura Vaca, and our HR team for putting that together, Katie Ellis particularly. We've also done a lot of training with principals and site employees with respect to our vacation procedures and making sure that those are understood and followed. We are almost done revising the board policy and the AP for your consideration, and we'll bring that back to you when that's ready. So that's why it's substantially completed but not quite completed. It's really just the AP and the BP that we need to bring back for your consideration. The overall control environment, so this is just basically we need to have an opportunity for staff to share concerns around fraud, waste, and abuse. And as you know, thanks to the help of our Director of Communications, we have indeed created a hotline for employees to share such concerns. So the only thing not completed in this is just tweaking our AP a little bit and bringing that back for the superintendent's approval. So we're almost done with that. Payroll and timekeeping, without getting too far in the weeds, this was about, making sure that our new hires are placed on the right salary schedule. So this is really just about cross-checking between the PSS team and the BSS team and payroll. And so Mr. Jimenez and his team have put some new procedures into place, and those are going well, and that's been completed. The next couple are in progress. So making sure that the sites are submitting all the documentations with respect to their collections. We have Mr. Tarantino has formed a committee which includes site level representation, so a few elementary school clerks, a couple middle school accounting technicians, and a couple high school accounting technicians who are looking at this in the next few issues and are going to work on creating some policies and procedures to tighten things up. So this falls into that bailiwick, as does this one. Let's see what the difference is here. So this one is really about related to field trips and cash collections around that, really more about what's going on in the classroom and how that's managed. Purchasing and accounts payable. This is about who gets to enter vendors into the computer system and then who gets to generate the checks or asked to pay those vendors right through AP. So we've delineated those duties, and that's done. I think all we have to do is actually do the training to roll that out and be completed, but that's all done. This is about making sure that everyone understands the RCF policies and that makes sure that they're consistently enforced across the district. Again, Mr. Tarantino's task force is addressing that one. Let's see. I wanted to say finally, but there's a couple more. Let's see. So this one is about reconciling our invoicing for facilities use fees versus what's on the schedule. This is, again, substantially complete. We've adopted a new platform which will take care of most of this. So once the Facilitron is implemented, we should be completely done with that one. This is making sure that our accounts receivables are tracked within the system. We don't really use the PeopleSoft tracking or the AR module because it's cumbersome and not particularly well designed for school districts. So we have a different software program that we track, and it's just a matter of crosswalking those together to make sure that we get all of the outstanding ARs into the system. And Mr. Tarantino and Ms. Romero have created a new process to do that, and that's already rolled out and done. So next steps, so that was just, believe it or not, just 10 of, I believe, 50, right? Those are the most important 10. We continue to make progress across all 50. We will bring back the related policies to the board for their consideration. Future focuses on the moderate and low gaps, and then we'll bring one more progress report back to the board in the fall of 2018 and anticipate that most, if not all, will be completed. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone?
I don't have a question. I just want to thank you for giving us this follow-up, and it's a great follow-up. It's great to hear it's moving forward. Sometimes we wonder, oh, whatever happened to that? We don't have to wonder. So thank you very much for this. You and your team have done a great
team
job.
effort.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Ditto those sentiments. And next item is 6.3, Enrollment Report number 6/2017-18.
Hold on, I had a
Associate Superintendent Little. I'm
question.
sorry. Ms. Beatty?
I had a question for Mr. Little.
My apologies. Go ahead.
So you mentioned in the vacation, with regard to vacation, you were working on revised board policies and administrative procedures. So my question is, our current board policies have clear caps on accrual and carryover limits. Are those being enforced?
I think we're making progress on enforcing them.
So we're working with our supervisors. The monthly reports that are now provided to them give them an accurate update of the balances on vacation. So they're developing plans with employees to begin working down those number of days. In some cases, it may take some time, but they've made significant progress in just the first part of this fiscal year.
I believe
Last month, at last board meeting, we shared the fiscal impact of the savings, and the amount that we reduced the debt liability, I believe, was from $7 million down to how much? $3.9 million. So we are making progress.
And that is wonderful news. I just want to know if the policies, as they exist, are being enforced, because that's how we got to this $7 million liability, because the board policies, which serve as the laws of the district, were not being enforced. And that was specifically with regard to how much vacation could be carried over year.
So the policies, as they're written, are being enforced now moving forward. But the problem is we're addressing the large balance accruals that the employees have earned, and determining how long it's going to take. So they all have a plan in place to address, to bring them all down to the board policy acceptable level. But moving forward, our administrators and management team have a work year calendar. So moving forward, they're not going to be accruing any vacation days. So that balance can never increase. It'll just continue to go down.
And that reminds me, and this is probably, for a future date, but that just reminded me. I know that I've been told that it's very common for other districts to do with management as we do with teachers, and that is to have positive work days.
And we have that. We put that into place this year.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further? Associate Superintendent Little, item 6.3, Student Enrollment Report.
Yes, thank you, Trustee Zane. This is our sixth month enrollment report, which reflects an enrollment of 36,443 students, which is 91 students less than what we started the year with. However, we're still 468 students greater than last year at this time. As you can see, we bounced back from the bad month of the flu epidemic, which was a 95% attendance rate, and we're back up to closer to our average. We had a 96.46, so our average for the year is a 96.79%, still above the number that we budget for. So we're in good shape.
Great, thank you very much. Next, item 7.1, ratification of stipulated agreements for student expulsion. Dr. Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight we bring forward to the board 3 stipulated agreements for your action.
Thank you very much. We begin with case number 2017-2018.13. Is there a motion for approval?
Move to approve.
Motion for approval, Trustee Beatty.
Second.
Second, Trustee O'Connor-Ratcliffe. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Case number 2017-2018.14. Is there a motion for approval?
I'll move to approve.
Motion for approval with Trustee Beatty.
Second.
Second with Trustee O'Connor-Ratcliffe. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, case number 2017-2018.16. Is there a motion for approval?
Move to approve.
Move for approval by Trustee Beatty, second by Trustee O'Connor-Ratcliffe. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Next is item 7.1, approval of California School Board Association CSBA Board Policy 6000 Series Instruction. First reading. Dr. Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight we bring forward as a first reading the policies to be considered for adoption in the area of instruction. As shared in the green sheet, the policies will be available to the public upon request and review and feedback. We'll bring forward the policies next month, April, for final board adoption. And what I'd like to do is really thank the whole LSS team. These are monumental policies that we have to go through that we will abide by for all their work in ensuring that we have the strongest instructional program in our district.
Great, thank you very much. Mr. O'Connor-Ratcliffe.
I thank you so much for all the work. I know this is monumental, as you said. I have one policy that I would like us to come back. I would love for the board to direct staff, in fact, to come back with a revised section 6154A regarding homework. I don't think this one is explicit enough. The current body of research on this topic should be our guide. I don't think this reflects that. It's important to involve our stakeholders here, including our teachers, our parents, our students. But for my part, I would definitely like to explore eliminating elementary school homework entirely, except for reading, and explicitly lay out our expectations and limitations for middle and high school homework. And that is what I would like to see in these 6,000 series.
So what we didn't bring forward are the administrative regulations where those particular pieces are actually delineated out.
And I don't want them in administrative. I want them in board policy. Okay.
We'll review that particular policy.
Further comments? Great. Ms. Beatty?
Yes, thank you for your work on this one, and this is one of the two most important ones because it has to do with the kids in instruction. It's the 5,000 series and the 6,000 series. So it was nice to review these, and they're so much cleaner than the ones we had. So I did just print out a couple that I wanted to highlight, and one is class size. The governing board recognizes that smaller classes may contribute to student learning by allowing teachers to better identify and respond to individual student needs. And that goes on from there. And then the other is also that I just wanted to highlight is the extracurricular and co-curricular activities. And, you know, maybe that goes to some of the issues that were brought up. And these are obviously, these ones are school-sponsored, but community members also mentioned some enrichment programs that are provided by the community at large. The governing board recognizes that extracurricular and co-curricular activities enrich the educational and social development of students, and enhance students' connectedness with schools. And the district shall encourage and support student participation in extracurricular and co-curricular activities without compromising the integrity and the purpose of the educational program. So in that vein, we want to make sure those programs are well supported financially as well. So again, thank you for your work.
Thank you.
It's an understatement to say that these are a little bit easier to read than our previous policies. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next item is 8.1, first reading, initial proposal from the Board of Education to I'm sorry, pardon me, 7.3, I skipped right over it. Presentation by Dr. Robertson on public safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight we have a brief informational presentation on options-based drills as additional strategies for school safety. So at this time, I'd like to have Todd Casson, our Executive Director 2 from LSS, and Jim Crittenden, who is a program specialist for the prevention and safety for the San Diego County Office of Education, where he's worked for the last 20 years, to come to the table. Just a little background on Jim. Jim assists school districts in the development of comprehensive school safety plans, including trainings on threat assessment protocols, active shooter responses, and after-event recovery activities. Jim's experience at the San Diego County of Education also includes developing partnerships with law enforcement agencies, researching best safety practices, and creating resources for school districts. And before Jim starts, I'd like to just recognize Cindy Hicks, who already came up again, who's our program specialist and grant researcher, who's really our lead in the district and colleague in the areas of safety. She works closely with schools and the district to develop community partnerships and structures to ensure their safety. So Cindy, I'd like you to stand so we can give you a hand, please. All right, Jim and Todd, I turn it over to you.
All right. Do you want to start? Or
yeah, sure. Dr. Phelps, or thank you, Dr. Robertson. Dr. Phelps, President Zane, members of the board, Poway Unified staff, and community members. Thank you for having us here tonight. It was just over a week ago. I was completing my trainer of trainers training. Say that one really quickly. With Mr. Crittenden down at the San Diego County Office of Education. Having already seen last spring a presentation that was provided to all of our administrators at the site level and district level regarding active shooter events. And coming back to the office, the first thing that came to our mind was we need to get this in front of the board. We need to have you see what we have been doing and where we see ourselves going as a district in regards to adding to our safety plans. So I'm going to have it start here with Mr. Crittenden. Take it away.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Todd. First of all, I'd like to thank items 6.1 and 6.2 for reaffirming my career choice of not being an accountant. Sorry. I had to do it. Cindy told me not to do that, but I had to do it. So, good evening, board. Thank you very much for having me. As Todd said, I want to give a brief overview of the work that we've been doing at the County Office of Education around active shooter and armed assailant attacks and some of the best practices that we have seen over the course of a few years. Following 1999, that's a year that always stands out in education, right? The Columbine attacks. That really changed how we dealt with active shooter incidents in the school world, that we started to implement lockdowns. Prior to that, it was really just basic emergency disaster procedures that we followed. Then we started to implement lockdown following Columbine, and unfortunately there have been several horrific events since Columbine that have really led to some lessons learned for us to really take a look at this again and see what else we can do besides just locking down. Locking down is still going to be a cornerstone of our response, but we feel like there's some other options. We always want to try to include barricading when we lock down, which I'll get to in a minute. But we also think that giving students and staff the other options of being able to run or perhaps fight or disrupt an active shooter that happens to get past our barricade or get past our lockdown really gives us an advantage in survival. Having that survival mindset we think is critical. In 2013,
we saw some guidance from the Department of Education finally on some other options rather than just lockdown. And the guide you see on the screen, Guide for Developing High Quality Emergency Operations, was in collaboration with the Department of Education, FEMA, Department of Justice, and several other federal agencies. And it was really the first time, Homeland Security had been talking about this for a long time, but this is the first time we saw general guidance for education. Shortly after we saw that document, shortly after this was published, the County Office of Education put together a work group of school administrators, school resource officers, school psychologists, staff. Ms. Hicks was part of that work group, and we began to really look at the issue of run, hide, fight, and how this might roll out and what this might look like in an education setting here in our county. Just want to highlight those 3 bullets to your right. This as part of this guidebook, that no single response really fits all. These events typically unfold very quickly, and we need to be very we need to be prepared for several different options that we might have depending on how things unfold. And again, that survival mindset, we really feel like if we have other options, evacuating or hiding, including the barricade, will give us the best response. There were a lot of concerns, though, from this work group, primarily about training students. We are not recommending at this point really that we train students. What we're doing so far is only training staff members, with the caveat that staff members need to make it clear to students that they need to follow directions of their teacher and of their staff. Right? We think that's very critical. But we still had some concerns about training. We had been hearing from other parts of the country that were using full-scale exercises that included airsoft guns and actual real weapons with simunitions, and we really thought that was a little over the top and could in fact be detrimental. And while we were kind of working through this, there was another publication that came out in 2014 from National Association of School Psychologists and the National Association of School Resource Officers that really got to, if we're going to look at other options based rather than just lockdown, we need to do this developmentally appropriate, right? So we need to work up. We need to really scaffold. We need to start with some basic education, some mental practice, some tabletop drills before we get to the point where we're doing full-scale drills. And even then, with that scaffolding, we're not sure it's appropriate to be training elementary school kids or doing full-scale simunition drills with elementary school students. Those are some of our concerns. Those will be district by district decisions. But at this point, we're not recommending the training of students or using those full-scale drills. The committee also determined that we really wanted some more input from law enforcement. We had initial talks with school resource officers. We started to have some casual conversations with law enforcement. And what we found is law enforcement was saying, well, we will do, in the case of an active shooter, we'll do what the school district wants us to do. The school district is saying, well, we'll do what law enforcement tells us to do. And then if you pulled 10 different law enforcement officers, you'd have 5 different answers about how we should really be addressing this problem. So we wanted everyone on the same page. We thought that this is critical that we get everyone on the same page. So on the screen, you'll see a list of law enforcement agencies that joined this work group, and we began to put together a training program. And what came of this work group really that's important to recognize is some of the law enforcement agencies took this in front of the Police Chiefs and Sheriffs Association here in San Diego County. And with the information that we were providing, along with the guidance from the NASP document that I referred to earlier and the guidebook from the Department of Education, we received an endorsement from the Police Chiefs and Sheriffs Association that run, hide, fight does have a place in education, provided that we follow the recommendations in NASP for this scaffolding and not start training students too early. So we got that recommendation or the endorsement from police chiefs and developed a training for school districts. Currently, we offer a 6-hour training that Todd just attended last week. Again, we're not recommending training students, but we do have an additional work group together. Again, Ms. Hicks is part of that. We're looking at recommendations on how we can begin to train students, but we're working through this process slowly. We know that it's a very different mindset.
We know that it's a very different mindset to switch from lockdown only to something like run, hide, fight. There are numerous considerations that policymakers need to make in making that big jump. So that's a lot of the things that we're trying to work through and provide recommendations. But again, ultimately, this will all come down to district by district decisions and how you want to implement this, what your timeline will look like, how you want to implement this, and what your planning considerations are at the district level, and probably site by site as well. We may have some input on how this might roll out. So to get to the three basic points, run. You may hear other terms: evade, evacuate, escape, but they all amount to getting out. If you can get out, the important part to remember here is we're not just going to run any time we hear gunfire. We need to know exactly where that gunfire is coming from. We need to know that we can envision a clear path to safety before we just take off. We don't want to run into danger, especially if we're a teacher in a classroom. We have 30 kids that we're responsible for. We don't want to take them closer to danger. So we will do our traditional lockdown and maybe add some barricading in that case if we don't know where the shooter is. But if we know where the shooter is and they're on the opposite end of campus and we know we have a clear path to safety, we feel like that might be our best option rather than just locking down and waiting for rescue. Second piece of this is the hide piece, or lockdown and barricade, or take cover is another term that you may hear, but we're all familiar with the rules of lockdown. Lock the doors, close the blinds, close the windows, turn off the lights. We want to, even if a board doesn't, or a district doesn't feel like run, hide, fight might be appropriate, we would highly recommend that you include some cases of some concepts of barricading into your lockdown, making yourself as hard of a target as possible. You can see by the slide, using heavy objects to put in front of doors to at least buy yourself some time. If someone does try to get in, there's going to be chaos, and you've bought some time. We've worked on some special considerations. Most of our doors push out now, right, for fire considerations. So there's things we can do to try to keep that hinge closed to make it harder to get in. But we really are recommending that we're adding barricade to lockdown. And if, worst case scenario, if someone does defeat our barricade or get into a classroom, now what? Again, we need to have that survival mindset. In the run, hide, fight scenario, we've got that. But I really like the term disrupt, and that's where we want to start with. If a bad guy happens to get in a room, we have ways that we can disrupt and throw things, yell and scream and move. It's not about staying silent and having them have every opportunity just to think about what they want to do. We really need to be able to disrupt, throw things at them, and while that is going on, while that chaos, we're trying to get out. So, again, worst. It may come to a teacher confronted with a gunman, and that will be individual basis. I don't think anyone can actually require that a teacher is going to try to take down a gunman, but it certainly would be an option using that survival mindset in the case that the very unlikely event that someone does breach a classroom. But we really want to focus on that disruption, the noise, the chaos, throwing things, trying to take the shooter's mind off what he's there to do, and then trying to get to safety.
So, Jim, I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to open it to the board if they have any questions for Jim at this point, and then Todd will do some follow-ups.
Excuse me, Ms. Beatty?
Thank you. That was an excellent presentation. I learned a lot, and I think these are great ideas that we should incorporate. And our system, as compared to this, is fairly outdated. I agree with you that we have to be very careful with regard to training the kids. At the same time, I think we're a long way off from that, because the first order of business would be to train the teachers, and that could take a significant amount of time before to get all the teachers trained up. Then once we got to the level of training the kids, I assume the initial step would be in classroom instruction. It wouldn't be some real-time physical simulated. You want to start at first with just lecture instruction, video, what have you, just to get to impart the information about what the options are. As far as I know, with regard to feedback that I get from my kids right now, it's just pure lockdown. Teacher goes and locks the door and tells the kids, if I'm not here, here's where the key's kept. And that's about the extent of our drills. So just even, incorporating the step of barricading, I think, would be a new process. So anyway, this is very interesting, good information. So thank you.
It's a lot to consider for sure.
I would just add, Ms. Beatty, that part of the training that you go through, one of the first steps we ever do in a situation is sit there and think about it. As I walk into this room today, I know that there's 4 exits. I wouldn't have thought of that a few years ago. How would I get to those exits if these lights were off? If we had to barricade, what would be used as a barricade? Never thought about that as a classroom teacher. And as we went through, those were very important points of just sitting there thinking, how would I do this? So that thought to take that step with no action, just sit there and think about it and then discuss. Those were the very first steps we took in the training.
All right, so we have a few more slides for Todd. He will let us know kind of what our status is and where we'd like to go.
Well, I can tell you at this point, as you see the slide, we have 10 people trained in our district that can act as trainers that have completed the 6-hour training at the County Office of Education. Mr. Dayoff and myself were the last 2 to make it through that training, even though this guy was out to get us the whole time.
Yeah, that's right.
So it was one of those things, though, that as I had been through the presentation that on the second bullet that was provided to all of our district and site level administrators, I'd been through an armed assailant training before, and I kept thinking to myself, this doesn't resonate with me. This isn't something that is gonna hit my campus. It doesn't resonate. Sitting in this room last spring, listening to Bob Mueller from the County Office of Education go through some specifics of the tragedies that have hit not only education but our communities, really opened my eyes that we can do more. Because we're really good at the cornerstone of this program, and the cornerstone is a lockdown. The campus I used to oversee had a lockdown for nearly 2 hours last year that we did have to release with the help of law enforcement. And I did go into rooms trying to find kids, and they hid very well. In fact, I think we had some kids that were already to jump and take the fight because they told me afterward, if you didn't say, "Is Mr. Casson, I'm coming in with police," you were going to be taken down. So that cornerstone we're really good at. But I think taking that next step to really get our staff to think about, what does it mean to barricade? What does it mean to really get that door so it's not going to open up? That can't happen the first time. So it's a thought that we have to go through and really review step by step. And it is going to take time. So we have our trainers, and as we look at moving to training to the site level, it really is going to be dependent on our training teams to really develop more protocols for the site level. How can we work with our elementary staffs? How can we work with our middle school staffs and our high school staffs as we move forward? But that wouldn't happen without the partnerships that we have. Without the partnerships with people like Jim and Bob Mueller down at the San Diego County Office of Education, our partnership with the Sheriff's Department, our partnership with the San Diego Police Department, those were the things where we sit down and say, how do we do this right? Does this match with what you're doing? Because Run, Hide, Fight was not meant for schools. This is meant for businesses. And if you look at all of the active shooter events, that's where the vast majority of these happen, out in the workplace. But I'm going to go back to something that Jim talked about having a survival mindset. It's little steps of thinking about those things before they happen, of now, how can I react? And I really think we're not only teaching our staff, and soon we'll be teaching our students how to not only react to a situation in a school, how to react at something at the mall, how to react at something
out in their workplace as they get older. So it's an important training, and they're important steps that we're taking. But I go back to, we're really good at the beginning, and that's the cornerstone is the lockdown.
Mr. Caston, your last comment, I just want to applaud you for that, because that's what I was thinking as you were talking just now, is what are we teaching our students as far as their own personal safety outside of the classroom? And it's critical. You're covering a lot of different strategies here, but there was some information, I don't recall where I obtained it some time ago, and I was talking with Captain Knighton from the Northeastern Division the other night about this. And to the extent that this is incorporated in the instruction, it could be useful, but there's this kind of this mindset of all rules are off. And I shared this with my 14-year-old son, and it's two simple examples are if you're at the mall and there's a shooting at the mall. Most people's general reaction is to just run for the nearest exit. I mean, they leave the way they came in. And just instilling this mindset of all rules are off. No, go into the nearest retail store, go to the back of the store, go to that door that says employees only, that door that you would never otherwise think of taking, and take that employees only exit door out to the back of the mall. And the same thing in sporting venues and the like. Athletes and performers only doors that are on the perimeter of some of these structures. All rules are off. Take those exits out to the outside of the building. And so this sort of instruction, and on top of what we're teaching our students as far as the school site, would be useful.
Yeah, completely agree. The part that really got me is I look at transitioning from the business model to an education model. I think of myself as the teacher in the classroom. Most of the time, run is not going to be an option. And when I sat there and watched the videos and I watched the beginning of the training, yeah, run. If I'm out on a field and I can get out, boy, that's wonderful. Most of the time I'm in a classroom, I'm not knowing where that sound is coming from. So it really becomes back to what we do really well, which is our lockdowns, and moving from that to barricading and getting our teachers to see how we can do that. As we work through, you can see we will be identifying training teams for each level. We will work to train those teams. We'll also continue with our collaborative working relationship with our friends at the county office, so we can start building protocols for that training that makes it out to the students.
Any questions for Todd? Jim and Todd, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Great
Thank
work.
you very much. Really appreciate it.
Next item is 8.1, first reading, initial proposal from the Board of Education to Poway Federation of Teachers, 2018-19. First reading, Mr. Jimenez.
Thank you, President Zane. Item 8.1 is the first reading of the Board of Education's initial proposal to the Poway Federation of Teachers to negotiate a successor agreement to the current collective bargaining agreement, which is due to expire June 30th, 2018. Under Government Code Section 3547, the presentation and the adoption of the district's initial proposal is a two-step process. First, it must be presented at a Board of Education meeting for public review, which we're accomplishing this evening. And after a reasonable amount of time, the public has the opportunity to review and offer public comment, at which point, at a subsequent board meeting, which we'll accomplish in April, we'll offer the opportunity for a public hearing and public comment on the Board of Education's initial proposal to PFT. Again, this evening, this is the first reading for informational purposes. To present the initial proposal to the public, there is no need for the board to take any action this evening. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next item is 9.1, adoption of California School Board Association Board Policies, 4040, 5131, 5131.2, 6163.4. Associate Superintendent Burks.
Thank you, President Zane. Tonight we are bringing these 4 CSBA board policies forward for final adoption following the first read last month.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to see that this is continuing to move forward. Right? I think we started this in January along the whole thematic of responsible use of technology and touching upon bullying and harassment and those items. So thank you for moving this along to facilitate conversation. I'll make the motion to approve and open it up to any discussion if there's any. Okay. Ms.
I
Bainey.
would just echo that, yeah, this is very apropos. This is obviously has to do with technology, but there's a lot in here with regard to bullying prevention and reporting. Let's see, 5.28, bullying, hate harassment, and hate behavior. And at the bottom of this page, section 5.28, there are procedures for the hate-motivated behavior and reporting requirements, whether it's the student to the teacher or administration and so on. This is somewhat related, but we have delineated policies with regard to reporting, and there's been a lot of publicity surrounding this new tip line that has the PUSD nomenclature, and I do have some concerns about some potential confusion surrounding this, as well as how this will be incorporated into our already existing procedures. Does it supplement? Is it duplicitous to existing protocols that we have? Could it potentially confuse the students internal to the district with regard to how they report out? So I have some concerns with regard to that. Normally, everything we do is done, is policy driven as a board, usually through staff work. So I just wanted to bring that up as a concern. We had this fantastic presentation on school safety, the forum in Mount Carmel, and I think one of the takeaways was it's a complex web of interactive departments that have to coordinate and communicate with each other, and so we want to make sure that any piece that's added fits within that complex system that we have established.
Absolutely. The establishment of the tip line was so that we had everybody knew that they had access directly to law enforcement right away, so that law enforcement be notified. And then what they do is they contact the district, and that's when we activate our processes, our procedures, and our personnel.
That was another question that I had with regard to that, is how the information is then going to get collected and either responded to the individual who left the message, and then how the district then gets that data, because there may be issues. It may overlap with some disciplinary issues. There may be some data components that the district needs to have, and I'm curious how all of that is going to work out.
The line goes directly to the sheriff's department, and then they
And police department.
and the police department, and then they determine whether or not, depending the level of severity or emergency or impact, that they'll determine whether they respond or it turns over to the school district, or if it's an internal thing. But either way, they will be working with the district intimately with each of those calls.
And as far as some of the tracking concerns, there is an anonymous nature to it, so we're not always going to know when someone leaves a tip on there who left it. But Dr. Phelps's point is well made, that once the law enforcement determines whether the threat is credible, they will be sharing the information with the school district, and then the school district will follow through accordingly.
There are the established systems, and they highlighted them at the forum, Crime Stoppers and Students Speak Out. The Students Speak Out is an app, because we know kids don't talk on phones. They use text and other devices. Those ones have they have a feedback loop where the person who left the tip can, if they want to have it, they get follow-up, so they know at least the information didn't drop into a black hole. So that's a concern with this being a new setup. Is that my understanding is that though it's 24/7 monitored, no one's physically picking up the phone. This is just an answering service, and then the messages are retrieved after the fact, and then apparently routed to wherever they need to go.
So it is a recording. The person calling in on a tip line can leave their message. It is then sent automatically or instantaneously, the audio file of the recording as well as a text transcription of the audio recording to both the Sheriff's Department and the SDPD. And the information for the, I believe it's the lieutenant in charge of the substation in Poway as well as the captain for the Northeastern Division, their personal contact information is linked to that tip line. So each one of those individuals receives that information directly and immediately. In the case of, in talking with Captain Knighton as an example, he indicated that he's access to that 24/7, and if he were to receive an alert or a message as a result of that tip line, he would immediately call. I believe it's his SRO or the person in charge of the working with the district on such matters.
The resource officers,
Right, the resource
those
officer,
are,
excuse me, yes.
usually the school sites, the high school sites.
Correct.
So with regard to this, we have board policy where we have certain delineated procedures, reporting procedures internal to the district. So if the district is going to take ownership of this phone tip line, which it does by virtue of the fact that it's got PUSD in the number, I think we need to clarify how and when this is used so that we don't miss opportunities internal to the district to deal with things in real time. I think it's important, as I said, that this just meshes with the structures that we already have in place so that something doesn't get missed.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think that if ultimately our goal is to have the tip line, say perhaps imprinted on the back of student ID cards, say the beginning of next year, that to the extent that there's still the other lines in existence, making it clear that the 844 PUSD tip is really for giving tips as they relate to imminent threats or information that could result in violent acts on a campus. And some of the other lines that are in existence perhaps are better suited for reporting some bullying or some harassment along those lines. And maybe that's something that the district can work on, making clear to the students in the district the delineation between the two tip lines.
Well, because what the policies are saying here basically is that the student reports to the administrator, and then the administrator contacts law enforcement. So we have to figure out if we're going to change that. And we're just telling people, just call this tip line external to the district. I mean, that's where we need to reconcile these contradictions.
Yes, we'll go ahead and do that. But right now, we just wanted to make sure that there was a number that people can call immediately in case something does happen. So, but all the details will be worked out.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I agree with you, Ms. Beatty. The last thing I'll say on this item is I appreciate, too, especially in context of what happened a few weeks back at Poway High School, BP 5131C. If it was not clear before, it should be clear now. It says here, students may also be subject to discipline in accordance with law, board policy, or administrative regulation for any off-campus conduct during non-school hours which poses a threat or danger to the safety of student, staff, or district property, or substantially disrupts school activities. So I appreciate the inclusion of that in the revised board policies and for your work in bringing these forward. The next item is 9.2, Strategic Planning Technology Committee Update. Associate Superintendent Burks.
Need a vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's an action item? My mistake. Okay, is there a
You
motion?
made a motion and I seconded
And
it.
then we got into discussion. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Next item is 9.2, Strategic Planning Technology Committee Update. Associate Superintendent Burks.
Thank you, President Zane. I'd like to share a brief update on the Strategic Technology Planning Committee. The committee has held its third meeting last Tuesday. As you know, the committee is formed to strategize and develop a new PUSD tech plan for 2018 through 2021. The 50 committee members include middle and high school students, certificated staff, classified staff, union representatives, administrators, parents, and community members. At its first meeting in December, the committee got to know each other and heard input from all stakeholder groups. We used the nationally recognized and research-based Future Ready framework to begin looking at the priorities based on 7 gears. Those gears include curriculum, instruction and assessment, personalized professional development, robust infrastructure, community partnerships, data and privacy, and innovative use of space and time. From that input, stakeholders synthesized data and identified priorities throughout each of the gears. The information was combined with the feedback gathered from a PUSD staff input meeting, 2 parent input meetings, and data from the Speak Up survey, which we received over 8,000 PUSD participants, to create an initial draft of the technology plan. At last week's meeting, committee members reconvened to review the initial draft. They collaborated within groups to dialogue and identify priorities and action steps to incorporate into our second draft. We will continue to gather feedback and look forward to presenting an updated draft of the technology plan at our next meeting. The finalized 2018 through 2021 PUSD Tech Plan will be presented at a board meeting later this spring. That's all for the update.
Thank you very much. Any board member comments, questions? Okay, thank you. Next item is 9.3, video surveillance grant update. Ms. Briggs.
Thank you, President Zane. At last month's board meeting, the board approved a resolution to submit a grant to the San Diego County Neighborhood Reinvestment Program to replace video surveillance systems at both Mount Carmel and Black Mountain Middle School. Since then, the grant application was submitted, and this past Tuesday, staff from the Technology and Innovation Department, along with principals from both school sites and President Zane, met San Diego County supervisors for a walkthrough of both site campuses. We shared our goals for more efficient camera locations, as well as switching to ultra-low light performance surveillance cameras that are capable of day and night, high resolution, and autofocus. We look forward to hearing back from the county supervisor's office moving forward. So it was a wonderful visit. It was very collaborative. We were able to show the campus and where we are looking to put replacement cameras and so forth, and we're continuing to do that at our other schools as well.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments? 9.4, board policy website update. Ms. Burks.
Thank you, President Zane. At last month's board meeting, all remaining CSBA policies will be coming forward for board adoption over the next few months. This evening, Dr. Robinson brought the entire 6,000 series of CSBA policies forward for a first reading. In April, she will be presenting the remaining learning support service policies. In May, Mr. Little will present the business service policies, and in June, Mr. Jimenez will present the personnel support service policies. We anticipate that all CSBA policies will be adopted before the 2018-19 school year. As we continue to transition to CSBA board policies, we have updated the board policy webpage to reflect the new adoptions. During the transition from PUSD to CSBA policies, we have placed a table on the website titled CSBA Board Policies and Administrative Regs above the PSD policies. So what you'll see here is what the new policies, CSBA, as they're getting adopted, will look like. Here's, and then we'll move on to, these are what our current policies and procedures look like. So when you look at them on the website, you'll first see these new CSBA adopted policies, and then below that you'll see the policies for PUSD that we currently have in place that have not transitioned yet. Within the table on this next slide, you will find each policy listed by series number and title. The 1000 series community relation board policies were adopted by the board in October and November and are listed in the table for your viewing currently. As the board adopts sections of the CSBA policies, those will continue to be updated on the webpage. Once the transition process is completed, all policies will be listed on one table on the website. I'd like to just quickly thank everybody in the Tech and Innovation Department for their collaborative efforts, as well as the Director of Communications and everybody in each of the different departments for helping us get this moving forward.
Thank you very much. Mr. Connor Radcliffe.
While this isn't the schedule that the board directed last month, at least there is a schedule now. I am happy to see that. I still want them yesterday, but at least there's a schedule now. We're not up in the air about when we'll see everything. So thank you for that.
All right. Thank you very much. Next item is 10.1, and we do have I'm sorry, Dr. Phelps, go ahead.
No, 10.1.
And we have a couple speakers.
No.
Yeah, okay. 10.1, approval of resolution number 44-2018 in the matter of support for federal gun control action. We have two speakers. Dr. Patel.
We do have two speakers tonight on this item. The first speaker is Jenny Barasa.
Good evening. My name is Jenny Barasa. I'm alum of Poway Unified, go Sun Devils, a long time ago. A parent of a Poway Unified transitional kindergartner and a former teacher. As a member of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, I want to thank you for Resolution 44-2018 in the matter of support of federal gun violence prevention. I appreciate your effort with this week's safety forum, as well as your commitment to our student safety. In addition to the resolution, the suggestion for a district-wide comprehensive safety plan and board workshop that was mentioned this evening, as well as the safety presentation that was also given this evening by the San Diego County Office of Education. I'm happy to see all of that happening, and I very much appreciate that effort and hope that that continues to work towards further action, not more than words. Our kids deserve more than words. But Poway Unified alone cannot ensure our student safety until our elected officials locally, at the state level, and federally take a stand for gun violence prevention. So your approval of this resolution, which asks for our legislators to take specific actions, is definitely a step in the right direction. It cannot end there. We must take the time to make the change. Our children deserve better. My 5-year-old deserves better. Your 5-year-old deserves better. Thank you very much for your time and your effort.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Lori Van Orden.
Good evening. My name is Lori Van Orden. I live in PUSD, and I'm a parent and also a former teacher. I'm here representing Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. I'll get back to my written notes here in a minute, but I had to write down survival mindset, because how did we get in this place that we have to be talking about this? I'm here for this opportunity to speak in favor of your approval of the resolution in the matter of support for federal gun control action. I was able to attend the safety forum this past Tuesday. I heard many members of our community offer ideas for avoiding the shooting tragedies that have afflicted this country's campuses in increasing numbers. And thank you for doing that. However, the truth is, Poway Unified School District cannot do this on its own. We need our elected officials in Sacramento and in Washington to have our backs, and most especially the backs of our children. Your approval of this resolution, which asks our legislators for specific actions, is a step in the right direction. We don't have to live this way. We can't live this way. And our children deserve the right to go to school without fear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Phelps.
Thank you, President Zane. Collectively, the Board of Trustees, all 5 of you, had urged and asked staff to put together resolution number 44-2018 in support of the federal gun control action that calls upon the United States Congress and the California legislature to prioritize the protection of our students and school system employees by passing legislation that more effectively regulates access to firearms in the interest of public safety, fund public health research on firearm-related issues, and advances mental health supports. This resolution is being brought to the board for approval tonight.
Thank you very much, Dr. Phelps. And I also want to take an opportunity to thank Ms. Barraza for being the very first person who emailed us this particular resolution and asked for the board to take action on this. I'm very grateful for that. And I've written back to you, and you know where I stand on this. I'd like to make a motion to approve it and entertain a second, open it up for a discussion. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
I'll second, though I have some comments.
Go ahead.
I would be willing to approve this as is, but I think that the recent and coming slightly after this California School Boards Association resolution had a few things, a couple paragraphs in particular in the resolved section that I would personally like to add, and I'd like to read those out loud and see if the board would consider adding those two as an amendment to what we have here. The first is, now therefore be it resolved that the governing board of the Poway Unified School District has completed and holds regular drills as prescribed in both school site and district emergency plans, and that said plans involve all school district personnel, law enforcement, fire and medical rescue personnel, emergency management personnel, and others essential to preventing, mitigating, or resolving any potential crisis. And then a couple more down, their third resolved paragraph, I think also I would like to see added. Be it further resolved that Poway Unified School District will continue to work with a broad spectrum of local community stakeholders, local law enforcement, mental health professionals, parents, students, teachers, and staff to take any threats of violence seriously and to develop, implement, and monitor policies and programs that foster and support positive school climate free from harassment and violence. I feel like those two I would like to go before that final, therefore, be it resolved that's currently in there.
Without objection. Ms. Beatty.
I also support the two put forward by Ms. O'Connor-Radcliffe, and I would like to add a few more from the CSBA. The CSBA resolution was quite lengthy, a bit cumbersome, but there were some good sections. So I'd like to add 3 whereas on the first page. The first one is fourth from the bottom, whereas gun violence in schools occurs in America with a frequency and a severity that is unparalleled anywhere in the world. And the second one is whereas exposure to trauma can adversely affect a child's health for the rest of their life. And whereas Poway Unified School District supports the right of students and staff to attend schools that are safe and free from violence and harassment, especially life-threatening forms of violence. Those are the 3 whereas. And then on the second page, the last whereas, the most effective approach to creating safe school environments is a comprehensive, coordinated effort, including school-wide, district-wide, and community-wide strategies supplemented with legislation, resources, and support at the state and federal legislation level. And lastly, second to the bottom, be it further resolved that Poway Unified School District asks the United States Congress to pass specific legislation that reduces the risk and severity of gun violence on school campuses and repeals the prohibition against data collection and research on gun violence by the U.S. Center for Disease Control. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beatty. Let me just share, I'm 98% there. That was the last whereas. The only reservation I have on it, it gets into an area that I'm not very knowledgeable about.
Can you be more specific about which one?
The be it further resolved. Concerning the data collection by the U.S. Center for Disease and Control, my general feeling is, though, the initial resolution does call upon Congress to act, and if it's broad enough in scope that it could easily be inferred to suggest such a thing without us having to get so specific, because I'm not as knowledgeable as I feel as I should be to say, yes, that sounds great, let's include that. But all other points that you included sound great.
If I may briefly just advocate for that one, I do have knowledge. I was a former federal law enforcement officer. For several years, I was with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms in Richmond, Virginia, which was the gun-running capital of the Eastern Seaboard. And we saw continuously, year over year, our gun laws crippled by the lobbying efforts of the NRA. And so our law enforcement efforts were basically diverted to the regulatory side and the gun tracing side after crimes would occur in major metropolitan areas. And the gun tracing was par none fantastic in trying to figure out how this gun that was used in a crime was originally purchased. But it was a very cumbersome process. To give you an example, and this predated my tenure in law enforcement, when there was an attempted assassination on Ronald Reagan, agents had to climb over boxes in a warehouse to dig through papers to try to figure out, to try to trace back where the gun had been purchased. So those tracing efforts were so successful that they ended up being made unlawful by the NRA. And this is purely just tracing. So next, the CDC stepped in and started tracking gun violence as a national health issue, especially because our hospitals, it was costing our hospitals millions of dollars to have to deal with gunshot wounds. And so they were treating this as a health issue. And so what this resolution, what this aspect is dealing with is that, once again, the NRA went after this portal of collection, of data collection, and this is through the Centers of Disease Control. This isn't even law enforcement. You know, they monitored health issues, national health issues of great importance. So as it reads, this would be to advocate to repeal the prohibition against data collection. So we're talking data collection and research on gun violence by the Center for the Disease Control. So we're not even talking as controversial as law enforcement efforts.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for the clarification. Other board members, any feedback?
Just a clarification from either or both of you. Do you feel that the existing resolution, the end there, says that we're asking them to prioritize and fund public health research on firearms-related issues? Do you feel that that's repetitive? Isn't that referring to the same thing? Yeah, I'm looking at both. I don't want to say the same thing twice, and I feel like it's the same thing.
This is broader. The one in the resolution we have before us is broader.
Well, isn't it better to ask for more?
The one that from the CSBA, that's more specific, specifically highlighting what the CDC does. There are lots of private universities and universities that do research on gun violence as well. So
well, it says public health research. Right. I feel like it's absolutely referring to this. But I'm asking, do you feel like it's the same, or?
I think it's good if we put the other CSBA be it further resolved and then end it with our last therefore. Kind of encompasses
specific and then go broad at the end. Okay,
I'm fine with that.
I feel like we're duplicating some of the sentiments. I mean, if everyone's okay with that, I don't mind. But
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I appreciate the background and the information there, Ms. Beatty. It's not something as though I feel as though it's gonna. I don't want to get in the way of a 4-0 vote on this, and I appreciate the background and the clarification on it. I'd say to the extent that the board is okay with the additional whereases and resolved provisions, it simply asks that if we're going to incorporate the resolved provisions from the CSBA resolution, that we be consistent with our resolution, that the original resolution, and change it to therefore be it resolved as opposed to be it further resolved from the CSBA resolution. Just add those and make it consistent. Okay.
Perfect.
With that, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just one minor change. where, on the fourth whereas for the PUSD resolution, it says has prioritized. I'd like consideration to change has to will continue to.
I like that.
Agreed.
Can we say has prioritized and will continue to prioritize? I think we have prioritized it in the past. I don't want it.
Okay.
Well, we'll continue to. No,
It
I like
includes-
yours. It includes both.
Yeah.
Yes, I
Will
like it.
continue to include both. I like it.
Okay. Yes, so there's a motion and a second to adopt the resolution that was presented with the addition of want me to enumerate the whereases from the CSBA resolution, or did we fairly well capture that? And then cleaning up for consistency in language. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, carries unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, next item on the agenda, 11.1, board member reports. Ms. O'Connor Ratcliffe.
All right, I'm ready to lighten it up. I went to Del Norte High School's Guys and Dolls production. It was fantastic. It was amazing. I know that Westview's Legally Blonde opened tonight, but I will be going next weekend. I already bought my ticket. Mount Carmel's Cabaret later this month. I cannot wait. I love High School Musical season. They're the best. I'll be at all of them. I did want to take a second to talk about more amazing students who I've seen in action this month at our Poway Unified Recognition Dinner, which I was so happy to be there to celebrate our PTA and foundation presidents, all our volunteers, teachers, staff members, and administrators of the year, and of course our district's generous business partners. We also got to enjoy quite a bit of outstanding student performances by the Mount Carmel Jazz Band, the Rancho Bernardo High Choir, Westview's ROTC, and I'm not positive who the strings were out in the lobby, but Westview's string group, the orchestra, quartet, yes, I'm sorry, there we go. Amazing student performances again. I wanted to mention while attending the Rancho Penasquitos Town Council's Grant Committee meeting, where my daughter's Girl Scout troop was asking for a little bit of money for their community service project, literally the entire room was filled with our Poway Unified students making extremely eloquent pitches for all of their worthy projects. I love seeing our students out there, and want to give a shout out to the Rancho Penasquitos Town Council too for making a lot of those projects happen and for giving them an opportunity to do something adult and responsible and really helping them move forward. I visited Highland Ranch Elementary School for their Friday flag. It happened to be their Dr. Seuss Spirit Day, so it was super fun to see all of those kids and staff dressed up like Thing 1 and Thing 2 and the Cat in the Hat everywhere you looked. I want to thank all the teachers and kiddos who are showing off their classrooms and the work they do every day. Really amazing. And thanks to Principal Vanolia, who was a fantastic tour guide and a fantastic advocate for her school. I've got some things to talk to you about, Chad. I also visited Chaparral Elementary. Got to read one of my favorite books, Green Eggs and Ham, to Mr. Clerk's first graders on Read Across America Day. And I got to hear about all the foods afterwards, all the foods that they've tried that they didn't think they'd like, and they did. Things as exotic as French bread. First graders, I love them. The Southern Regional Odyssey of the Mind competition was held at Black Mountain Middle School last weekend, and I got to see a few of our teams finishing up there. That is an impressive number of PUSD teams moving on to the state competition. This was also a month for celebrating a lot of staff, our classified employees of the year. I was able to go on the two presentations for our district classifieds of the year. Michelle Cass in alternative programs was at a dentist appointment when we got there, but Shelley Porter at Sunset Hills was home. That was a lot of fun. I also attended the Superintendent Appreciation Dinner to celebrate Dr. Phelps, along with Dr. Patella and Associate Superintendent Burks. That was a fun night, saying yay for everything that superintendents do, and particularly our own. And finally, again, another thank you to Dr. Phelps and all of our staff, and there were a lot of us. What a team effort who made Tuesday night's school safety forum such a success. And you brought it all together in a very short period of time,
provided a ton of information and afforded some peace of mind, I think, to our community. I know that we are all in this room committed to continuous improvement in this area. We talked about it a lot tonight, in fact. Keeping our students and staff safe is our top priority. So I just wanted to close by thanking everybody for their hard work. That was really kudos to you, really. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Beatty.
All right. In the same vein, I'll try to keep it light. Janet, I'm glad you're still here because my board report is dedicated to Janet Latang tonight. A little while ago, I received a letter from Dr. Keith Peterson, a professor of music at Point Loma Nazarene University. He's the director of Point Loma Singers, Vocal Jazz Ensemble, and Choral Union, and I did get his permission to read his letter with you, to share it with you. Last weekend, I had the privilege of conducting the select choirs from Del Norte, Mount Carmel, Poway, Rancho Bernardo, and Westview High Schools, along with the orchestra from Rancho Bernardo High School, in 2 performances of Mozart's Requiem at the Poway Center for the Performing Arts. I want to tell you how impressed I was by the musicianship, the preparation, and the commitment to excellence your students demonstrated in their energetic and nuanced performance of this demanding work, one of the most famous in Western culture. This masterpiece is performed by professional choirs and orchestras around the world, and the PUSD students, soloists, choristers, and orchestra alike gave a performance that moved the audience and brought them to their feet. I must add how impressed I am by the vision, commitment, and skill of each of these teachers who work to motivate their students to master this challenging music and bring students from different schools together to create the successful experience. It is unusual for and difficult to get so many talented directors to dedicate so much rehearsal time from their own programs, but their willingness to do so created an event that was life-changing and community unifying for both students and audience members. Certainly, the conversations I had with performers and parents after the concerts indicated that lives had been both moved and broadened. Lisa Friedrichs, Marty Martinez, Keith Satley, Jessica Schemmel, Daniel Moyer, and Zach Christie, PLNU 12, class of 12, exemplify the heart and dedication of a quality music educator. Your district is to be commended for offering such life-affirming experiences for its students and community. Programs like this are only possible with long-term commitment on the part of administration, parents, community, and teachers. It would be an honor to be associated with the musicians of Poway Unified School District again. Sincerely, Dr. Keith Peterson.
Thank you. Dr. Patel.
Good evening, everyone. It sure has been a busy time since we last met. I feel like I start off every single board report with a statement, something to that effect. But I can easily say some of the highlights for me were participating in the employee recognition events that have gone on throughout this month. Congratulations to Classified Employees of the Year, Sunset Hills librarian Shelley Porter and Michelle Cass from Alternative Programs. I really enjoy being part of these surprise events because it's wonderful to see the reaction on the children's faces at the school sites and the other staff members. But this time the surprise was on us since Michelle Cass was at a dentist appointment. We all kind of hung around and put up a Wonder Woman poster and took pictures around that instead. But definitely congratulations, and I look forward to working with you in the future. I also attended the Superintendent Appreciation Dinner where our very own Dr. Kim Phelps was recognized for her contribution to the field of education. And of course, the PUSD recognition dinner itself was an amazing night. Not just the student performances, but all the volunteers, the PTA, our community support, all of it being recognized in one place in one evening. I sincerely believe that this public showing of appreciation is an important part of what we do in education. Sometimes we don't do it enough, and I really appreciate the efforts that our district puts into showing that publicly. I have been out and about at school sites as well. I attended multiple LCAP meetings, including primary and secondary sites, as well as one for classified staff. These meetings can present valuable opportunities to hear firsthand some of the concerns that our school community members have. And it was an opportunity for me to discuss ways we can improve. For the first time, I attended the classified one at one of the elementary school sites, and I got a lot of really interesting critical feedback, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of that. I also had the pleasure of being interviewed by the Westview High School newscast team, and I attended Poway High School's Cinderella musical. Again, it seems like it was a long time ago, but I do remember leaving that play feeling like I might never come down again. I was delighted to be back in one of my favorite kindergarten classrooms. All three of my daughters attended kindergarten with Mrs. Harshman to celebrate Read Across America Day and Dr. Seuss's birthday. It really was a perfect combination of days. I had a delightful time in that kindergarten classroom, watching the reaction on their faces as we went through Cat in the Hat. Being able to visit school sites is also critical for me because our students are the source of my inspiration. Some days are hard as a school board member, and going back into the classroom reminds me of why I want to be in this position and why I continue to work hard in this position. Now there's some new learning for me this month, and that included participation in the Western Association of Schools and Colleges accreditation meeting for Mount Carmel High School, and attending the San Diego and Imperial Counties ACLU legislative briefing downtown. As a board member who's only in my second year, there's constantly new opportunities for learning, and I really strive to go to all these opportunities as much as possible. At the ACLU briefing, we covered topics including student discipline, student social media rights, and the priority to raise per pupil funding. And I am excited to announce that the Education Budget Subcommittee Chair for the state of California is considering increasing our LCFF funding for the base. And that's exciting news for us. And Michelle, Board Member O'Connor-Ratcliffe, and I will be going up to the CSBA Legislative Action Day next week. And we will continue to push for those increased funds. I'll close my board report with a brief statement about student safety at our schools. I attended both community meetings, the one at Rancho Bernardo High School immediately after the threatening vandalism, and the larger one at Mount Carmel High School earlier this week. I am proud of the resolution that we passed today, and to some it may seem like a mere political action. But its realization is only possible with the support of our community, dedication of our staff, and the awareness of our students. Sadly, I have witnessed a rise in public anger in the recent months, like a little bit of road rage of unwillingness to wait for a school bus with its stop sign out while a special needs kid boarded that bus, or an angry and impatient grandparent yelling at a teacher for being asked to follow the rules in the pickup line, or even vindictive misinformation being spread on social media. While we all know our students need more social, emotional learning and support, it seems that maybe everyone does. I remain hopeful that we can all learn to take a deep breath and be a real positive role model for the future citizens that are all around us all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Patel. And just a quick question on your report. You mentioned the LCFF increased funding. There's a Senate bill number attached with that, correct?
I don't remember it offhand.
I recall seeing it maybe in the...
there was a CSBA.
Got a bulletin. There's a Senate bill number. It'd be useful to kind of get that out there and encourage people to write in in support of that Senate bill. Again, thank you, everyone. And I think that hopefully one of the things that comes across, at least in these board member reports, is the fact that we're all out there doing different things, oftentimes at different ones, oftentimes at the same ones together. But there's so many different events going on at any given month. We can't possibly attend them all as individuals, so I'm glad to see that at least one of us is making it out to various events. For my part, and kind of becoming a habit of mine, just putting them in chronological order since the last board meeting we had on February 8th. I also, on February 10th, attended the Poway High School Titan Theater presentation of Cinderella. I laughed, I cried, it was better than Cats. I also joined Dr. Patel and Trustee Sellers at the Western Association of Schools and Colleges accreditation visit to Mount Carmel High School on February 11th. On February 14th, no place I'd rather be on Valentine's Day than at Del Norte High for their new classroom's ribbon cutting ceremony. It was a fantastic event, and Dr. Patel was there as well as that event. On February 15th, two meetings that evening. One, very grateful to have had the opportunity to attend the monthly meeting of the College Bound program and then left there to go attend and celebrate at the Asian Business Association Lunar New Year party, and saw a good number of Poway Unified parents at that event. And then, of course, we had break on February 27th, a busy day, to be sure, with Trustee O'Connor Radcliffe, attended the PUSD City of Poway Joint Use Committee meeting at Poway City Hall. Also was very fortunate to have been in the building here at the district office at the time, and decided to attend and stick around for the principals meeting here at the district office, where public safety was discussion, and a meeting that lasted at least about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. Great meeting, great information, and a lot of collaborative teamwork there. I left there to attend the State of the County address by County Supervisor Kristen Gaspar, from whose office we are seeking a $75,000 grant for surveillance video cameras, which I think we stand a pretty good chance of getting, if not more. Also, on the February 28th, we had the PUSD Annual Recognition Dinner, a fantastic event. Without naming names, I will say earlier in the day had a very productive, and if he and she are watching, want to give a shout out and recognize that had a very productive constituent meeting here at the district office, and felt very gratified by that, with Dr. Phelps as well. On March 2nd, met with Poway Mayor Steve Voss and San Diego City Councilman Mark Kersey in discussing a number of public safety items as they relate to Poway Unified and their respective municipal jurisdictions. That work is ongoing. You know, one end result of that work was the PUSD tip line, and there's another project in the works. On the 6th, of course, the same day as the Public Safety Community Forum, as was mentioned, had an opportunity to tour Mount Carmel High School and Black Mountain Middle School with Supervisor Gaspar's office as they reviewed the sites in doing their due diligence for awarding the grant. Later that evening, of course, was the School Safety Community Forum. It probably can't be said enough times, but thank you to everyone for all their effort in pulling that together again so quickly. Is greatly appreciated. I know that much better to be proactive in that form of communication before parents and the like are coming to the district office and saying, what are you doing? What are you doing about X, Y, or Z? One of the things Dr. Patel and I have discussed is it would be great if we were able to provide that very same presentation on an annual basis, and we can work on what month would be best to do that, but particularly for new or incoming parents to the district. And we can, all that work has been done already. Now it's a matter of just updating that fantastic slide deck and providing that information again on an annual basis, so that parents are continually staying informed on our progress in the area of public safety. You know, on a closing note, and this really pains me to have to do this, because I'm going to take it down for a second. This is probably one of the most disappointing moments of my tenure on the board. I don't intend on ever addressing every single tinfoil hat conspiracy theory that comes before the board. But earlier this evening during public comment, Ms. Dao went to a new low, and I'm disgusted by it. Her remarks are very insidious in implication, and frankly, they're flat out defamatory. I said that I would offer for the record during my public comments the fact that she's implying that I hired somebody, promoted somebody, or hired somebody into a position at a former place of employment. Simply not true. I have a superior to the hiring and the promotion for all positions in that organization. I had no role in it. What's worse is she's dragging an individual who had some very unfortunate behaviors when he was 14 years old. He's now 21 or 22. If anybody knows the history on this young man, when he was 14, his father was incarcerated. His mother's an alcoholic and an addict, recently died. He has a severely disabled younger brother. He was very misguided. He did some foolish things when he was 14 years old. Now, as student board members, on a monthly basis, we vote to expel students. We vote to readmit students from expulsion. We believe in second chances. This individual that unfortunately Ms. Dao is trying to imply by his actions, I somehow condone what he did when he was 14. I don't condone it, but at the same time, I recognize, as I hope we all do as school board members, that we give our children a chance to grow and learn from their mistakes. And so I'm very offended And I hope, she'll have an opportunity on her social media channels to push back on this. And I know she will. But it's offensive. On a lighter note, next Saturday, one of my favorite holidays of the year, St. Patrick's Day. I wish you all have a good one. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Phelps at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, President Zane. After this board meeting will mark my 1-year anniversary with the Poway Unified School District. Lots of respects, feel like I have been here for a long time. And other respects, I feel like I just got here. But we have certainly, our leadership team and our team has certainly done a lot in the past year. And I'm very excited to celebrate that 1-year anniversary on April 3rd. So moving on, listening to all the things that you guys did kind of made me tired because I'm like, I did that. I was there with them. And I thought, wow, this has been a really busy month. I was really excited because one of the things that I did as well too is I got to read at Pomerado Elementary School, and I love, my favorite part of the job is visiting our schools and seeing all the wonderful things and seeing how great our teachers are. When I go out into the community, I can't tell you how many people always tell me, you know what, my child's getting the best education ever in your schools, and that just makes me so proud. Heather Green taught me something new. Our pre-K teacher at Pomerado taught me about how we're using social thinking, and I was so impressed at the response and the discipline of our pre-K students. She says a lot of our speech pathologists use that form of instruction, and I was very impressed by that. So I want to move on my report. We have some recognitions to note to present to the board this evening, and I encourage you to look at your board packet for their full descriptions. In interest of time, I'd just like to highlight a few of those. We had 34 PUSD students who were selected for an internship at Northwood Grumman's high school internship program, including our very own student board member, Shana Mishra. The program gives aspiring engineers a chance to have hands-on experience in STEM careers. 5 of our middle school science Olympiad teams are advancing to the state tournament next month: Oak Valley, Black Mountain, Mesa Verde, Meadowbrook, and Design 39 campus. And for this year's Association of School Administrators Award, PSD has awardees in 6 categories. Region 17, Region 18, the AXA Administrators of the Year. We have 6 of them that are going to be honored, and it's the most of any single district. We have Corey Amador, Pam Garamond, Lynn McConneville, Christine Peck, Katie Solo, and our educational partner, Deborah Schwartz from Mission Federal. We look forward to celebrating them on April 27th at the Honoring Our Own dinner. Speaking of dinners, the annual PUSD Recognition Dinner on February 28th was a fantastic celebration of all of our classified employees, teachers, and volunteers of the year. It was my first one, and I was truly impressed by our student performers. I appreciate you sharing that letter because I'm so proud of our students. I told you I visited one of our schools, and I literally cried in front of the kids as they're performing, and they're looking at me like, is that bad? Our superintendent is crying while we're performing for her. But it just literally, the beauty of their music and performance, it just brought tears to my eyes. I couldn't help but to feel so compelled. But our student performers and our speakers were amazing at this event. And as I said on that night, what makes our district so special is the people who give so much of their time, their treasure, their talents to our schools and our students. Our Talented Studio 701, our student interns, created this month's Educational Excellence in Education episode featuring the Peer Ambassador Program, which sends our high school role models into our elementary schools in our community. And I have a short video clip for you.
These students at Turtleback Elementary have taken on the responsibility of school safety patrol. Responsibility is one of the 6 pillars of character counts taught at Poway Unified Schools.
I believe that you're building that moral intelligence in kids by developing those character traits, and everything else after that falls into place.
In fact, some of Principal Otten's former students returned to campus as high school peer ambassadors, a program that brings 12th grade role models to teach and inspire younger grades through interactive presentations.
It gives me the opportunity to be a part of something bigger, not just myself. So it helps me to interact with other people and be able to support such a good message. And it just helps me impact a lot of people's lives positively.
The Peer Ambassador program started as a partnership with Visual Photography and Rancho Bernardo High School and has expanded to include all comprehensive PUSD high schools. Students are nominated and go through an application and interview process to form a diverse group of representatives.
In Bronco Ambassadors, the key part of it is working with people with many different backgrounds. Especially in our group, we're all very diverse, so working with them is a complete new experience.
Among those new experiences was appearing at the City of Poway's Christmas in the Park as guest MCs and interacting with community members.
The strides that they've made since being at that training program has been amazing. I just got to see a group introduce an act here on stage, and they were so poised and so happy and so inspiring, and it was really great to see them interact with the students in the audience.
Through hard work, dedication, and a drive to be the best you can be, one can achieve amazing things.
The history of the Ambassador Program has pretty much been limited to having these students work in the elementary schools. I think it's really great to see the program having evolved to where our 12 ambassadors from each high school are now out in the community.
The ambassadors have come to embrace their celebrity status, handing out trading cards and signing autographs.
They see them walk onto the playground and they start screaming like they're at a rock concert. And then they see them come out at the Friday flag, and it's the same way. Very, very, very popular.
They utilize their influence to instill the pillars of character: trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship, setting them up for future success.
I feel like once you're an ambassador, you're kind of one for life. You hold on to these ideals that you have for the rest of your life. And I know that when I'm in college, I can look back on my experiences in the ambassador program, and I think it'll help me feel grounded when I'm there.
For Poway Unified's Excellence in Education series, I'm Seth Dacio, Studio 701.
I love those videos our students produce. They're so talented and they're so professionally done, and really under the guidance and leadership of Christine Peck. I can't tell you how impressed I am. Just another way, the Student Ambassador Program as well as the interns, just another way of how we demonstrate here at Poway that we're really trying to meet our mission of college and career readiness for all of our kids. Finally, I'm so proud of our community for coming together for the PUSD School Safety Forum that was held on Tuesday night at Mount Carmel High School. We had a great turnout from parents, students, and staff, and our city, our county leaders, and law enforcement partners. We had over 758 people RSVP and turn in questions, and we had staff gather together and really impressed me on how we pulled an entire presentation and all of the expertise around our district to be able to pull that presentation off so that we could provide that assurance, that affirmation and security for our families, and letting them know that we took their questions and concerns very seriously and wanted to respond immediately. Their presence was appreciative, and truly it shows how important the topic of safety is to everyone. Our campuses should be environments where our students can learn and grow and thrive and be free from fear. And together I know we can prevent school violence. I was struck by the statistic shared by the District Attorney Summer Stefan, and her statistic that she shared was in 93% of school shootings, the shooter said something, told someone what they were planning to do. And that is why the culture of see something, say something is so important. And our new POSD tip line being monitored by law enforcement is a huge step towards that. And so I want to thank President Zane and his work and our work with Mayor Voss and the sheriff's and police departments for making this happen so quickly for our district and our schools. I'm so proud of our staff. I want to thank our leadership team and our staff for all of your hard work. It was a really, really tough 2 weeks for all of us, and we've been working really, really hard. I'm looking forward to this weekend. But anyways, I just want to thank you and let you know how proud I am to continually every day. I am so honored to serve as your superintendent, and very excited about the team of people that we work with. Proud every day when I walk in our schools and see the great job and the great, wonderful education that our children are getting, and to serve this board who's committed and dedicated to the continual improvement in our programs in our district for the sake of our children. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Phelps. And just FYI, the date of the Honoring Our Own Awards is also PUSD Robotics Day in Poway Unified. So just we're going to attend that Honoring Our Own in some robot costumes. That's the rule. We're going to put it down, yeah. Yeah, just me. I'm just going to go dressed as a robot. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our meeting for this evening. Before we adjourn, I'd actually like to adjourn right out of a moment of silence for those lost in Parkland, Florida. We're adjourned. We'll see you April 19th. Thank you.